Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 7th, 2022 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. Hope everyone is well tonight. We have a rather busy agenda tonight, so we will try to move as quickly and in an organized way as we can. First up, oh, by the way, Sharon Control will be joining us on the dais this evening as a full participating member of the commission, as not all other regular commissioners present. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
First up is the approval of our minutes. First from in their backward order, I'm not sure why, but anyway, November 16th, 2022. Any issues on that? No, is there a
Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of November 16th, 2022, despite the fact that I was not present for that meeting, but I did observe it on TV as well as read the minutes.
All right, very good. Thank you. There's
Second?
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Next up are the approval of the minutes from our November 2nd, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of November 2nd, 2022, as read in the record.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, we have first up in the agenda is the recommendation of the Board of Appeals. We have a few of those tonight. First up, Caroline Seiden is presenting from staff for BOA-9439-2022, and I'll let you take it from there so we don't repeat ourselves.
Sure. Thank you. This is a recommendation to Board of Appeals on special exception case BOA 9439-2022 for a private education facility at 12 East Diamond Avenue in Suite A. This is part of the 11,500 square foot retail center known as the Golanus Center. And just to orient you on the aerial, this is East Diamond Avenue with the Golanus Center in blue between Russell and Old North Frederick Avenue. This is just a closer up aerial, and Suite 12A is identified here. The subject property is zoned Central Business District, CBD, pursuant to Section 24-160F2C5 of the City Zoning Ordinance. Private education facilities are permitted as a special exception in the CBD zone, subject to approval by the Board of Appeals. The applicant, Stepping Stone Treatment Center, she was unable to be here tonight, so I'm just going to briefly present for her, and she has someone here, John Clay, who can answer questions if there are questions I can't answer.
Yep.
But this is a pretty straightforward application. The Stepping Stone Treatment Program Center is currently using the space for office use, doing virtual sessions for driver education for people that have a suspended license, and this is part of their work to get a license back. So the MVA, the Maryland MVA, requires also that there be space for in-person classes, even though it will be intermittent. So the classes may operate in person a couple of times a month on Saturday afternoons for up to 8 individuals. So unfortunately, being in the CBD zone, that requires a special exception because that use is considered private education, even though it's very minimal, and actually in terms of use of intensity of use is actually less intensive than a retail use because none of these people are driving their cars there. So there's a new parking calculation that was done, and you can see that there, I don't know if I can zoom in on this, but there are 49 spaces required and there are 75 provided, so there's more than sufficient parking on the site. And that's it.
Nothing else is going on in the space except this use, correct? In the off times or?
So it was part of, it was an optical supplies store, but that use will be going away, and then they will take full use of the space.
Okay.
Right now, she's using office space within the optical store, but that, and there is in the record a letter from the property owner acknowledging that she can use the space.
No alterations to the building have happened for this or
Nothing.
anything? Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Nope, nope.
Seems like I won't say it that flippantly, but it's an absolute appropriate use, I think, for this space in this area.
Especially on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, if there's no other questions, concerns? Is there a motion, please, on the recommendation to Board of Appeals?
Mr. Chair, I move that the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, applicant's testimony, and the staff report findings and recommendation, recommend approval of special exception BOA 9439-2022, finding it in compliance with section 24-189 of the city code with the 2 conditions as listed in the record.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thanks very much for being here. Sorry we didn't ask any questions. Next up, we have 3 more Board of Appeals items tonight. They all are for 429 East Diamond Avenue, so I'm going to ask Jasmine Forbes to set this up and explain that there are 3 that appear to be similar or the same, but they actually are separate. So when you're ready, Jasmine, go ahead and jump in, please.
So good evening. So this is a recommendation to the Board of Appeals, and before we have our first applicant present, I kind of want to provide a background information that will apply to all 3 special exceptions this evening. These applications come before the Planning Commission in accordance with Section 24-188D, which required all petitions for special exceptions to be referred to the Planning Commission for recommendation. As shown on the screen, the subject property is located at 429 East Diamond Avenue and is zoned CBD. The applicants are requesting approval for an auto repair use in section 24-160 F2C8 of the City Code. Auto repair services outside of Old Town District is a special exception use. 2 of the businesses also provide body repairs. So in section 24-160 F2C9 of the city ordinance, body repair services outside of the Old Town District is also a special exception use. The property is located outside of the Old Town District. So prior to the comprehensive rezoning of the CBD zone, all types of auto uses were non-conforming. In 2018, the Mayor and City Council approved a text amendment to permit auto repair uses as a special exception use, but only outside of the L Town District. There are 3 existing auto repair businesses on the property that were operating prior to the text amendment and received a use and occupancy permit. Therefore, these businesses are not required to submit a special exception application. There are several auto repair businesses that have been established and since the text amendment and requires a special exception in order to continue operations. As part of the application, the property owner has submitted a site plan to restripe the entire parking lot. As shown on the screen, the restriping of the parking lot will increase the amount of parking from the approved 22 to 26 spaces. And the property is required to provide 23 spaces for all the uses that are on the property. Due to the restriping of the parking lot, the property will be required to come to conformance with the city code. But given the constraints of the property and the desire to provide many parking spaces as possible, a waiver for the 1 bike space requirement and a 10% parking lot green area requirement waiver is also requested as part of these applications. So the first application we have this evening is BOA-9409-2022 JM Auto Repair at Suite D, and I will have the applicant and his representative to do the presentation
All right,
for
thank you.
theirs this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jose Blanco with owner of Blanco Services. I am here helping Mr. Jose Mendoza, give the presentation because I started with the city of Gaithersburg in 2011 when I established my business. I started at 427. We grandfathered in to that usage, then moved over to 429, and we were there for about 3 years. And so I understand about the variance and the city code, and that's what we were waiting for. So when these Mr. Mendoza took over the unit, they had assumed that it was going to be grandfathered in, but the usage is it was grandfathered in when I took over the unit, which was over 6 years ago. I'm sorry, Mr. Mendoza is going to be doing general mechanics in this bay, which is Unit D. He will have 3 parking spots in front, which will be for any customer vehicles, and any vehicles that he's currently working on will be staying inside the bay. Because he's also a subcontractor for me, any overflow parking that he needs, I've already secured an off-site parking on Snuffer School Road, where we can have any vehicles that are going to be out for an extended period of time that can be moved to the location so that we don't impact the neighbor or adjacent businesses, which I've also extended that offer to my, his neighbors, so that they can all work together, so that you guys can, see that they're trying to work and be in compliance. That's pretty much it. Nothing's really gonna change. The businesses, they're there, and I've been dealing with Mr. Mendoza since when I was at 429 myself.
So you've been in the building over 6 years, you said, or?
I've been in Gaithersburg for
No, just this
10
site,
years.
but this
In
site.
on that site, I was there for 3 years
Okay.
till I grew, and that's why I've been guiding them and advising them to
Sure.
take baby steps, because you will grow, because the space is limited.
Okay. Jasmine, no worries from neighborhood services, no issues with the operations there over the last few years or whatever?
No,
Okay.
concerns.
No alterations to the building have happened? Do it one more time for me. The reason it's back here, or the reason it's going through this process is what? What triggered this?
It's the text amendment. So any new auto repair businesses that want to come in the CBD zone has to go through a special exception process. So let's say in the future, JM leaves and a new auto repair business.
Because it's a new owner or a new
It's
operator?
new owner,
Okay,
it
got
has to go
Yep.
through.
All right.
Yep.
It's not a use approval, it's individual business.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. Any other questions?
No, I mean, I will say, and this applies to all of these, two things. I think having this space as an incubator for small businesses starting up, I think, is incredibly critical for the city, and so 100% support it. As a very local to that space resident, I know parking is an issue, overflow is an issue, and more than once I've almost rear-ended flatbed trucks trying to drop off vehicles for repair who stop out in the travel lanes and stop traffic. And so I know that's when we had this discussion with the last time, that wasn't anyone's intent, but it's hard to control the tow truck drivers who drop stuff wherever they want. So that would be my one thing to staff and the city and the applicants, to please come up with an operations plan that does not stop traffic on Diamond every time somebody drops off a vehicle. Other than that, 100% support the business and the opportunity that these suites provide to people in the city.
All right. Any other questions? All right, I have to, for the purposes of the record, is there anyone in the audience that wanted to comment on this application? I know there are 3 that look similar, but if you have any comments on this one, please raise your hand or stand up. Okay. Not seeing anybody. Then the recommendation, please, Jasmine.
So staff recommends that the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings, and recommend approval of special exception BOA-9409-2022 and associated parking waiver with 7 conditions.
We do have a number of online participants tonight as well. We may want to ask if anyone online wants to.
That's a great point. And I'm missing my script, but let's have the tech team please play the how-to video for testifying if you're online.
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raised hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
Okay, and that, nope, the hand came and went. All right, so we'll keep an eye on that. Nobody has their hand up for now, but obviously we'll come back to this when we have some other applications presented as well. All right, so we have the recommendation. No testimony from the public on this. Any other concerns?
Nope.
All right, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings, and recommend approval of the special exception for BOA 9409-2022 and associated parking waiver with the 7 conditions as listed in it.
All right. Okay, it's been moved in second, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, then the next one.
Thank you.
Okay. So next we have BOA-9435-2022 Antonio Auto Repair at Suite H, and I will have the applicant, his representative, explain their business.
All right, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
We're just the commission, but that's okay.
Although we appreciate the promotion.
No, we don't.
So
We don't want to be
I'm here to
married.
represent Antonio Auto Repairs LLC. It's auto service business in the, text amendment that was just passed in the city of Gaithersburg, 429 East Diamond Avenue, Suite H. And we're just here to, present this application in hopes that it passes so we can continue to assist, the low-income residents in the area. There are other shops competing for, customers, but this, like you just said, is an incubator for small mom-and-pop shops. So we just want to, be in compliance because of the text amendment. It was not, having a use and occupancy prior. So we're here to submit this application.
Space is already set up for the business, there's no changes, no alterations?
It's already set up.
All set up, okay,
The
great.
previous business was D&U Auto, which was auto repair. However, there was a lapse, I believe, but it was previously auto, and then he was actually subleasing from them. But he got the new lease, and the text amendment came, so it's in between the little gray area
Yep.
of grandfather and text amendment. So we want to be in compliance. We submitted the application, and
Great.
we're here to get it
Well,
approved.
glad you got a
move forward.
space that worked, and thank you for working with us to get this all brought up to compliance. Thanks for that. All right, any questions?
Nope.
Any issues? All right, and I will ask again if anybody online wanted to comment on this application, please hit the hand button. And not seeing any of those. Is there anyone in the public here attending tonight that would like to comment on this? All right, not seeing anyone. Jasmine, what's the recommendation, if I don't already know?
So staff recommends that the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings and recommendation, recommend approval of special exception BOA-9435-2022 and the associated parking waiver with 7 conditions.
Very good. Any questions on the recommendation? Oh, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, I just wanted to mention the fact that in the previous motion, also of the 7 conditions, just so the public understands that there's no painting of vehicles that goes on in here, and that the parts and the materials are contained inside the building, not outside. So just for the record, I wanted to
Great
make
point,
that,
yeah.
make sure
for
everybody
that.
understands that.
All right. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, the staff reports, findings, and recommendations, recommend approval of special exception BOA 9435-2022 and associated parking waiver with the 7 conditions as listed in the record.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, and
We have
one
one more.
last, number 3 and final, okay.
Auto repair week.
All right.
Right. Next, we have BOA-9440-2022 Castro's Auto Repair, which is located at Suite G. And I will have the applicant and his representative
All right.
to
Good evening.
present.
How's it going? It's basically the same thing. He's been there for multiple years and wasn't aware of the special exemption. The space has always been auto repair and just wants to keep doing it, but legit.
Okay, good.
I also want to say he's the
I'm the
property
owner.
owner.
And again, like I said, there's no modifications happening to the buildings, no changes except for the parking striping that's happening as part of the overall lot. Okay, great. Any questions? All right, anyone in the public that would like to comment on this application? All right, seeing no one. And nobody online. If you are online and want to comment on this, please hit the hand button. And I don't see any. All right, recommendation is what, Jasmine?
Okay. So staff recommends that the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and staff report, findings, and recommendation, recommend approval of special exception BOA-9440-2022 and associated parking waiver with 7 conditions.
All right. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
No. Mr. Chairman, the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings, and recommendations. Recommend approval of special exception BOA 9440-2022 and associated parking waiver with 7 conditions as written in the record.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thanks for being here. Good luck. All right, so now that moves us to our site plan agenda. We have 2 tonight. First up is for AFP-9285-2022, construction of a new 4,536 square foot automatic car wash building at 87 Bureau Drive in the C2 General Commercial Zone. This is an amendment to the final site plan. Jasmine, are you presenting this as well?
I am.
Okay, so presenting from staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presenting from staff, Jasmine Forbes, for plan number, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is tonight.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
Okay. So staff's before you to present amendment to final site plan application AFP-9285-2022. This application comes before the Planning Commission in accordance with Section 24-172A, which requires the Planning Commission to grant amendments to approved site plans. The applicant is requesting approval to demolish the existing car wash building and construct a new 4,536 square foot automatic car wash building. As part of this application, the applicant is also requesting a parking waiver from the city code. Also, an associated forest conservation plan was also submitted. Pursuant to Chapter 24 of the city code, the Planning Commission must review and approve forest conservation plans. As shown on the screen, the property is located at 87 Beer Drive, and access to the property is through the McDonald's lot address through 83 Beer Drive. And there's recorded plat showing there's an ingress-egress easement
Okay.
between the 2 properties. And I will have Laura Tellerico from Miles and Stockbridge. She's going to do the presentation this evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Laura Tellerico on behalf of Flagship Maryland Popco. With me today is David Malik of Flagship. So on the screen you can see the aerial of the property and surrounding area. The property is highlighted with the red triangle. It totals approximately 1.06 acres, and you can see it's bounded by I-270 to the northeast and other commercial properties to the northwest and southeast. So abutting the property to the north is the McDonald's drive-through restaurant, as Jasmine mentioned. And then to the west and across Bureau Drive are apartments and a senior center. To the southwest are a variety of commercial uses located in an office building. And to the southwest and across the intersection of First Field and Bureau Drive is the Quince Orchard Shopping Center. That's just off screen, and it contains a variety of retail and restaurant uses. The property is zoned C2 General Commercial, as is the surrounding area. Car washes are permitted in the C2 zone. This slide shows the existing condition of the property. As Jasmine mentioned, there is an 8-bay self-service car wash that also has 2 automatic bays. The plan is to demolish the self-service car wash and construct a new automatic car wash, which will consist of approximately 4,536 acre wash tunnel and an outdoor vacuum parking area. There will also be a small office within the wash tunnel building. Operationally speaking, the proposed automatic car wash will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. each day. It's going to be express service only with self-service vacuums. That means that there aren't going to be employees there washing and vacuuming the vehicles for customer. It'll just be they go through the tunnel and they have the option to vacuum their car or leave. On average, it's going to take each vehicle about 2.4 seconds to go, minutes. That would be car wash from the future. So, no, 2.4 minutes to go through the wash tunnel. There will be 3 employees working on site at any given time. That vacuums are often a concern with car washes. The vacuums that are going to be installed here are relatively quiet, and that is because they are powered by a central vacuum system that's located in the building. The individual vacuums won't have those motors that make all the noise. Additionally, when the car wash closes at 8 p.m., the vacuums will be shut off. You can see on this plan that there are 24 total parking spaces. Of those, 20 are the vacuum spaces and 4 are the employee spaces. 3 of the vacuum spaces will also have electric vehicle charging stations, and there will be 1 vacuum space that is ADA van accessible. The applicant is also requesting a parking waiver for non-standard striping between the vacuum parking spaces. The zoning ordinance requires 12 inches of space and double parallel lines between the parking spaces, but the applicant is proposing 4 feet of space and diagonal striping between them. And this is essentially for safety, so that when people are opening and closing their doors and walking around their cars and other cars are coming in and out, there's enough space for all of those activities. This slide shows the circulation around the site. As you can see, the vehicles come in to the right to the ingress-egress easement from Bureau Drive, enter the site, go through the stacking lanes, and then cycle through the wash tunnel. There is, on this slide, it shows the option where vehicles turn to the right coming out of the wash tunnel and then turn right again, turn left to enter the vacuum parking area. And then after that, they will leave the vacuum parking area to the left and make a right back into the McDonald's property using the ingress-egress easement to get back out to Vero Drive. This slide also shows that there's an escape lane in the property where, after going through the queuing lanes at the bottom of the screen there, they can go, if there's an emergency for some reason and they can't go through the wash tunnel, they can exit out through the vacuum area. But that will generally be blocked off. Vehicles won't be able to go through the vacuum area without going through the wash tunnel. This second circulation exhibit shows how vehicles will exit directly from the wash tunnel through another curb cut, essentially between the McDonald's property and the subject property, into the ingress-egress easement and go back out to Bureau Drive. Under the code, the applicant is required to provide queuing or stacking spaces for this use. In this case, whereas 8 ingress and 2.4 egress stacking spaces are required, 15 ingress and 3 egress stacking spaces will be provided. On the screen, the stacking spaces for ingress are indicated with those blue dots and the kind of faint gray cars you can see there. Also, in accordance with the city's drive-through memorandum, the length of the queuing lanes will measure 313 feet from the entrance of the wash tunnel to their entrance. This is longer than the minimum of 200 feet required for, or recommended for, car-centric uses. Next, this is the landscape plan. As shown on the landscape plan, the applicant is incorporating trees and landscaped areas throughout the site to create green respites and meet landscaping, stormwater management, and forest conservation requirements. The project includes 32% green area, whereas only 10% is required. The parking lot area itself will be 20% green area, and as you can see on the plan, the applicant's incorporating some shade trees along the perimeter. There will also be 2 bioretention planters. Those are kind of in the center if you look at those 2 triangular shaped areas between the parking spaces. And then in terms of forest conservation, the project has an afforestation requirement of 0.16 acres, and this is going to be satisfied through trees and landscape as shown on this plan. Next, this is the proposed architecture for the building. The building is going to have a very minimal impact on the surrounding area. It's only a single story. In accordance with the zoning ordinance's requirements for car washes in the C2 zone, the proposed wash tunnel will be faced with brick and split-faced CMU, that's a textured CMU. Other materials such as high-pressure laminate, metal, and EIFS will be incorporated as accents. Where these materials are included, they break up the building's facade and create visual interest. Like you can see going across, there's a metal canopy, and there's also those EIFS cornices on top of the roofs. The slide you're looking at right now is the west elevation, which is going to be the most visible elevation. You can see that there are variations in height and materials that really break it up and make it more visually interesting. This slide shows the east elevation, which faces I-270. It's currently not visible from I-270 because there are trees. However, in the event that I-270 is widened, those trees might be removed, so the applicant has included some additional design elements and materials. Finally, these are the north and south elevations. They are the wash tunnel entrance and exit respectively. And you can see the signage and the different elements that they're included for visual interest there. Lastly, we'd like to touch on master plan compliance. The land use element of the city's 2009 master plan designates the property and adjoining area as commercial. The 1997 master plan noted that the property was vacant and that it should be developed with commercial use. The property was thereafter developed with the existing car wash. Consistent with the recommendations of the 2009 and 1997 master plans, the applicant is proposing to replace the existing existing self-service car wash with a new automatic car wash, which is a commercial use and therefore in compliance with the master plan. So thank you all for your time, and thank you to Jasmine for all of her hard work on this. We're here if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you. Questions? Go ahead.
I have some concerns about the stacking situation. Notice that come around January, February, when it snows, there's a lot of spillage, if you will, going into from other car washes, not necessarily from this car wash, but in anticipation that this spillage that usually comes out onto the street. 15 car stacking is fine during normal, let's say 9 months out of the year, but those 3 months gets really intense. The problem I see here is that you've got a very narrow two-way in and out to come into the facility, and it spills over towards the McDonald's, which also has stacking problems when they have lunch or dinner, whatever it is. So my concern is there any provision or is there any consideration given to the spillage that may occur, that probably will occur during those several months that it's really intense? How are we going to control that?
So just to address that a little bit, so 15 is almost double, which is required, which is
Right.
8. And another thing with this car wash is it's sort of a new way of doing things, whereas normal car washes kind of have that vacuuming of cars before you enter the tunnel, which is what causes the large backups to occur. With this car wash, you go straight from the stacking lanes into the tunnel and you vacuum your own car afterwards, and the applicant anticipates that will limit the excessive stacking and overflow issues that frequently are seen with car washes.
Does the driver sit in the car during the car wash?
Yes, the driver remains in the car through the entire time they cycle through the wash tunnel.
Okay, that should expedite then, okay.
So to piggyback on that, though, where is the actual transaction happening when they pay for it? What's the like? How is it being marshaled and organized on the way in?
Certainly. So I'll show you this side. Yeah. So these are the pay lanes, and if you saw that stacking slide that we had up before, at the end of where the stacking lanes go from 2 lanes to 1 lane, that's where those pay stations are.
Okay. And obviously you'll have attendants out there to kind of wave people around and make sure they're moving along and things like that, sure. I also want to hear about what you guys do with managing the water, reclaiming water. You know, I know car washes have systems for recirculating and reusing some of the water, but is it being improved from the current situation to this one, or how exactly does all that work?
Yes, the automatic car wash actually do have a reclaim system where recollect all the water from the current, the car went through the tunnel,
Mhm.
go through filtration to tanks, and then get reused again.
And that's being improved with this new update?
Yes. The self-serve car wash does not have the same reclaim system that
Right.
the automatic car wash has.
Good to hear.
Yes, it's just, it dispute the water to the site, to the pavement, to the parking.
Yeah, true.
No, I'll do the math,
Yeah.
15 cars, 2.5 minutes is 37 minutes, so if you'd stacked up, you'd have to wait more than half an hour.
Yeah. Good
If,
point.
if you were the 16th car, so it's unlikely, I would think, it's gonna stack.
Okay.
Also, I'd
Too
like
much
to add, in the winter, most of the people are not gonna go outside and vacuum their cars, they just want the salt off, so they just go right out.
Is that me? You're talking about me, right?
Do you ever vacuum your car?
No.
Okay, just to be clear. Any other, go
I
ahead,
just have a
Sarah.
quick question. So in the staff recommendation, Jasmine, you put, you referred to issues with the retaining wall?
So public works staff had just some minor comments about just the retaining wall details. The actual structure of the retaining wall, they have no concerns on, it's just more just little minor details. And they were of opinion that this could move forward to get approved, but they could be addressed after.
Will the windows, I notice you have a lot of windows, at least in the diagram. Are those going to be transparent, or can somebody actually see through them as the cars go through?
Yes.
So, okay, so it won't be frosted or anything like
No.
that?
Except in the winter.
Except for the right.
So I have one question about the circulation inside the vacuuming area. Come out of the car wash, you make a left if you want to vacuum, you go down, you pull into a spot. When you're done vacuuming, to get out, you back out of your spot and go back the way you came, correct?
Yes.
So at that intersection, you have cars making a left in
Mhm.
and cars waiting to make a left out to go back and exit?
No,
That node, that's what I want to understand more of, is that the entry and exit into the vacuum area is all happening on the north side, as I understand it. So
So-
walk me through that circulation.
I've finally figured out how to put the cursor on the screen here. So here, if you're coming out of the wash tunnel, right, you'll come over and turn into the vacuum area like so, and then
Yep.
you'll vacuum your car here.
Yep,
Back
So
out.
you got that number one spot.
Yep.
You'll back out,
Either
then
way.
go up here to the left,
Right.
and then out this way. So you're not going back around the way you came. You're
Correct, but-
going back to the beginning.
but I'm not sure it's a fatal issue. I'm just envisioning at your peak time in August when everybody from the car club shows up to wash their car and they all want to park and vacuum and hand buff every nook and cranny of their car, and all those spots are full. You're going to have people backing out, doing a 3-point turn to leave. At the same time, you've got people coming in. It is, not that it's not workable. It's, you know, in reality, it's probably not much worse
No
than your
different than a
average
commercial
grocery
center.
store
Yeah, yeah.
parking lot.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just,
Probably better.
it's that intersection, it's not so much in the drive aisle, but that intersection where people are coming in and going out and have water all over their windshield and all that stuff, it strikes me as
They'll be dry.
something that could potentially need to be watched and managed with, you know, additional signage or something, if you have issues. I think, in general, having used this place numerous times, keeping that activity on site as opposed to what happens now, which is where everybody, you know, buffs and scrubs and, you know, Q-tip details their car in the McDonald's parking lot, is probably a vast improvement.
So yes, there's employees on site that manage, if the traffic is so severe that needs to be managed. There's also directional signage that's on site, that's proposed. Also, the automatic wash tunnel provides like a few seconds gap between the cars. Kind of what you see on the road with a traffic light, you just pause between cars, so you have a chance to get out of that. Every 4 or 5 seconds, there's a pause.
All right, any other questions on the application presentation? All right, is there anyone in the audience here to comment on this application? All saving it for the end, aren't you? All right, anybody online? Let me look at the hands here. If anyone online is commenting on this application, please hit the hand button. And I'm not seeing anyone, so let's go to the recommendation, please.
Okay, so staff recommends that the planning commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings and recommendation, grant AFP-9285-2022, EMV-9267-2022, and parking waiver, provided in conformance with sections 24-170 and 24-172A of the city code with one condition.
All right, thank you. Let's address the parking waiver first. I think, ordinarily, we wouldn't want to see any more asphalt than necessary, but this seems like a reasonable ask to get the clearance and the safety for doing the self-serve vacuum. Any issues with that?
No, I mean, I don't think we're actually increasing the amount of asphalt that's on the site already, and it's providing for a better circulation use of the site that's there. So.
Considerably less than the existing.
Oh, than the existing,
impervious,
sure.
yeah.
And environmentally, yeah.
And then obviously, just the stormwater management upgrades are huge.
Exactly.
Huge boon.
Any concerns with the new car wash? It seems like a great reinvestment in the business and an improvement, and we're getting better water management, better service. I think.
I don't have to carry all those quarters with me.
I mean, I personally was hoping to see a super car wash like they have in One Loudon, where everything moves on conveyor belts.
2.4 seconds?
Actually, this is a conveyor belt.
Conveyor belt, really?
Oh.
Wow.
If you haven't, it's like a field trip.
Okay.
It's an experience.
Yeah, not really.
It's an event. But anyway, no.
Is the car cleaner?
Yeah.
It runs better.
Take that.
Any concerns with the application?
No, this is
No.
great.
No, just like to applaud the applicant for the foresight of having 3 EV chargers
Yes.
in placement. That's very good. I appreciate that.
It does make a difference to what business you choose to go to.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for reinvesting with us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, if there's no other concerns or comments, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, applicant's testimony, the staff report, findings, and recommendations, grant AFP 9285-2022, as well as ENV 9267-2022, and parking waiver, finding it in conformance with section 24-170 and 24-172A of the city code with one condition.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good luck.
Passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Good luck. Look forward to
Yep.
seeing all that built out. All right, that takes us to our second site plan of the evening. Chris, are you presenting tonight?
I am.
Okay. For SP-9149-2021, construction of two multifamily buildings at 9, 11, 13, and 15 Park Avenue and 201 Brooks Avenue in the CBD Central Business District Zone. This is a concept site plan, or presented from staff is Chris Berger tonight. Thank you for setting this up.
Good evening. The applicant, SMBW, and Harris Design and Construction have submitted concept site plan SP 9149-2021 that proposes the construction of 2 multifamily buildings on 1.65 acres at 9, 11, 13, and 15 Park Avenue and 201 Brooks Avenue in the CBD Central Business District Zone. We have 99 exhibits in the record, including the last 2 which were printed out for the Planning Commission. Building A, which would be at the southeast corner of Brooks and Park Avenues, will consolidate 15 Park Avenue and 201 Brooks Avenue. It will have 70 units and stand 4 stories tall with a surface parking lot behind it. Building B, which will consolidate 9 and 11 Park Avenue and the empty lot here at 13 Park Avenue. It will have 110 units and stand 5 stories tall with a partially below-ground parking garage. There's an existing city-owned alley which bisects the project area between the 2 buildings, and it will be improved within the project area to a 31-foot wide commercial service road. That alley is intended to loop around the project area, go back here, and connect to the commercial properties that are located along North Summit Avenue over here. So land will be dedicated along the entirety of the alley, even if there's not a commercial service road in that section. And we also have drone footage of the property area. It was taken during warmer days, and I'll continue while that plays. So the application comes before the commission in conformance with section 24-168 of the city code, which requires planning commission approval of a site development plan before construction of a building or structure. The project has concept stormwater management and sediment and erosion control approval. A preliminary and final stormwater management and sediment and erosion control plan will be required, as well as final site plan. Natural resources inventory and forest stand delineation plan have been approved for the project. The concept site plan meets adequate public facilities requirements for schools, water and sewer, and emergency services. And staff notes that a traffic study is not required for the concept site plan, but it will be required at the preliminary and final site plan stage. The plan meets components of the city's 2022 strategic plan as it pertains to economic development and redevelopment, environmental stewardship and sustainability, and viable transportation options. And the plan meets various purposes of the CBD zone. The HDC reviewed the potential historic or architectural significance of the 4 remaining buildings within the project area at its June 22nd and July 27th meetings. The HDC approved a resolution at its August 24th meeting to petition to the mayor and city council for the historic designation of 9, 11, 13, and 15 Park Avenue and 201 Brooks as a historic district. And they also petitioned for 9 and 15 Park Avenue and 201 Brooks to be individually designated historic sites. The City Council voted not to accept the HDC's petition to initiate designation at its October 3rd meeting. So after that, the HDC provided a courtesy review of the redevelopment project at its October 26th meeting. The HDC said the project should be redesigned to incorporate more residential design features and materials, and they opposed the 5th story proposed for Building B. The plans have since been revised to address most of the HDC's comments, but the applicant still seeks a 5th story on Building B. Any new construction in Old Town 4 stories or taller requires a waiver from the mayor and council, and staff seeks planning commission recommendation on that proposed height waiver tonight. So I'll go back to our presentation. And on this screen, we have the 2005 Old Town District Master Plan. And the rendered site plan that you see right now, our project area is in red over on the right side here. It calls for additions to the former residences turned offices that are along Russell, which is this block over here, and Park Avenue, which is our subject area. It also calls for townhomes along Brooks Avenue up here. And it recommends the construction of a 3-story multifamily building at Brooks and Park Avenue. The plan also recommends the creation of a surface parking lot behind the buildings with access via the city-owned alley off Park Avenue. In terms of master plan compliance, the plans must be in conformity, but they are not required to strictly adhere to each plan recommendation. And it's up to the Planning Commission during the site plan review process to determine that degree of conformity. On top of that, Section 20-18A of the City Code allows the Planning Commission to consider events such as the adoption of the master plan and determine through a finding that master plan recommendation is no longer relevant. As it relates to this project, it is staff's opinion that the project is in conformance with the 2005 Old Town Master Plan in the following areas. It proposes a multifamily building at the corner of Park and Brooks Avenue. It proposes improvements to the city alley. It includes a surface parking lot behind Park Avenue. It calls for new pedestrian and vehicular connections to improve circulation and wayfinding. And it is an increase in development density to strengthen desirability of Old Town as a destination. The Planning Commission actually deviated from the Old Town Master Plan recommendation within the subject project area in 2007 when it approved a 3-story building at 13 Park Avenue. Of course, that was never built, but the building that preceded it was torn down in 2008. A more recent example of deviation from the Old Town Master Plan came a couple of years ago when the Fishman Building, which is next to the train station along the train tracks, it is proposed to be in this master plan. It's over in the grayed out area over here. It's proposed to be a 3-story building. That building was approved for 6 stories. So finally, the Old Town District Design Guidelines apply, and the project meets all requirements for building, siting, and architecture with the exception of the expanses of windows at the building entrances. We'll see that during the architect's presentation. The windows go down to the ground, and the guidelines state that the windows should be at least 18 inches from the ground. So staff seeks a condition that the windows are revised accordingly. So joining us tonight, we have Spencer Grice of SMB Architects to present the plans, and we also have the property owners, Shaquille Siddiqui of Harris Design and Construction. So let me pull up the presentation.
Good evening, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. We're good to go.
I just want to clarify, I think maybe you misspoke, but the height waiver is only for building B.
Right.
We're by right at 4 stories.
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for having us. We are pleased to finally be in front of Planning Commission to talk about this. I won't really repeat what Chris has gone through, but we're happy to work through all of the meetings that we've had with the community, with planning, with HDC, to get here. And I think as the staff report reflects, the last meeting with HDC, we tried to take a lot of their comments and really address them in the architecture, and really came back with what we felt was a building that took to heart what the community was looking for.
Chris, did the HDC, were they able to close the loop on their comments and see the revised elevations and comments?
They have not, no, but they also will have a courtesy review at final site plan.
Final, yeah, okay.
So, as Chris said, we're obviously 2 buildings. We're a 4-story at Park and Brooks. We're a 5-story further down Park. One of the early things working with planning was the land dedications, both for the commercial service road and for the right-of-ways. You'll note that the pedestrian right-of-way down Park Avenue is not consistent. So part of the master plan and part of this development is to get that right-of-way aligned as part of the master plan requirements. Coming out of Historic District Commission, these were some of the things that both the commission and then comments from the citizens that they were looking, that they wanted a different palette on the building. The building's always been mostly brick and then a secondary panel material. The overall commentary was around just a more residential feeling. They felt like that the darker color scheme of the previous design didn't fit with the district. They wanted something a little lighter. So when we get to the renderings, you'll see we've changed the color palette of the building. The height has been an issue, just not only height in terms of, 4 stories is by right, but a perceived height of the building. So the building started out in the very beginning with pitched roofs, hip roofs on them. Responding to that height, they got taken off for a flat roof just to lower the perceived height. The building at Park and Brooks was always 4 stories. I think HDC and the citizens all felt like that seeing those hip roofs, the pitched roofs, was important for the community, for the buildings to feel more residential and to feel more contextual. So we brought those back. In the last meeting with HDC, one of the things we didn't have was detail in the renderings, or not clear in the renderings, the sort of brick detailing that we would have. So, headers and soldier courses, some of the things that it feels like is residential. So that shows up in some of the renderings we'll see tonight. The idea of retail, which we had started off with in both of the buildings, has now gone. I think Shaquille thought that trying to bring some retail into the district, that increased density helped support, was a good idea for the project. I think the community and HTC felt like that they were worried that retail would not be successful. So they wanted a more activated use that they could count on in the street. And I think because, at least on the Parks and Brooks building, across the street is some single family. So we've gone to all residential on the ground floor, except for the entrance lobbies to the building. And then the last was the building height, because we were asking for the height waiver on building B, which is the one closer to Diamond, to look at ways to minimize that. So we'll look tonight, we've looked to step that floor back and minimize the visual impact of that fifth floor. So won't dwell on this, but early on in the project, looking at the neighborhood, we were just trying to understand where development had gone. So looking at the master plan is one thing, but looking at development patterns is another. So just noting that to the north, there's a lot of multifamily. To the east, it's more commercial. To the south, it's more commercial and denser. So and then as you go west, really, you get back into the single family, especially west and north. So just noting where those patterns are and where we lie in that just helps us understand how to think about this project. These are the land dedications that were done. This was done early on, working with Chris and Greg, of just what was going to be required for the commercial service road to be viable all the way to the end. As Chris noted, we are developing and building the 31-foot wide road section as it impacts our project, but we are doing land dedications so that at least from our contribution, that road can finish itself out as other properties redevelop around us. And then you'll see down on Park Avenue, those pieces of land dedication were for the right-of-way to get the tree canopy, the sidewalk, that pedestrian cross-section of the master plan calls for. This is just an overlay of our development on the site as it sits and showing the parking. One of the things that we are doing to support all the parking is that the Building A, which is the building at Park and Brooks, the 4-story, has got surface parking behind the structures. Building B has got both surface parking and one underground full tray of parking. So the majority of the parking is on that site. Per the requirements of zoning and the master plan, all the parking is screened either by the buildings or by screen walls or landscaping, so that from the right-of-way you don't see the cars. Just a quick section showing this is through the Building B, which is the building we're asking for the high waiver request, showing the road section, showing the below-grade parking just as a stack of what the building is. Looking at the materials for the building, so it is brick. We've changed the color palette, and the primary color palette is a light gray in the brick, and then with some contrast of a darker shingle material that you'll see in the renderings that really sits up more at the tops of the buildings and where we've got the balconies. The lot of fenestration, so larger windows, but all gridded, so more residential in scale. For all of the units. I think one of the things that Chris noted, the entrances, we did pull the glass down to the ground, so we will pull that glass back up, the 18 inches. But everywhere else, even on the residential, all the glass does sit up. So it's a fairly simple material palette. It is, materials and colors found in the neighborhood. So this is standing at the corner of Parks and Brooks and looking down Park Avenue, the building in the foreground. It's a 4-story building. So one of the things just overall in the development we've looked to do outside of the changes we made coming out of the HTC was to try to make these buildings look a little different and structure them a little differently because they are separate developments. And because we were asking for the high waiver request on Building B, we've got a gable architecture that's on the 4-story building, and changed that architecture a bit on the 5-story building. One, because we were setting that roofscape back and trying to minimize that 5th floor, but 2, just to change the architecture of the structure a little bit as you go down the street, so it didn't feel completely the same as you go through both buildings. So, we've got balconies on the corner here that's set back, trying to create some depths on the buildings. Even up on the 4th floor of this building, the building that sets back. All of our balconies that are on the units, and not every unit gets a balcony, But we've used the balcony stacks as a way to start to order the building, give it some relief in the facade, setback planes, so you get the depths. It's not a flat building. There's a lot of play in the street. As you walk down the street, you get those setbacks. The entrances on all the ground level is more of a walk up into, so you get a little bit of a porch area. So again, it's not just a solid plane on the street. Just a kind of close up of what those entrances look like. So all the ground floor units do get some porch space. We do set the secondary material back in with the brick just to get some depth, trying to maintain a more residential, more detailed feel with the gridded windows. Again, starting to show some of the brick detailing that's around the windows with the headers and the soldier courses, things like that. This is going a little bit further down Park Avenue. So you can see kind of in the middle of that rendering, that's the commercial service road that turns in. You know, the commercial service road, I can't remember if the commercial service road is the road we are using to access all of our parking. So all of the parking comes out of our lots onto that commercial service road before it comes out to Park Avenue. But again, it gives you a sense, one, of the apartment entries, but two, as you transition to the 5-story building. That's just turning and looking straight down the commercial service road. So as you would go down, when we get to the plan, you'll see you'll turn in right or left, depending on the building, and access the parking. We've got sidewalk on the left side of the commercial service road. You know, the commercial service road that we are developing is per the master plan and the road section requirements. It does give you a better sense of, on the right, the building on the right here, you know, how we are using the balconies to create that relief so that the buildings turn in and out as they go down the street. And then you can start to see, trying to set back that 5th floor all the way around the building and use the roof to try to minimize that visually and give some real relief there. So the primary mass on the street is that 4-story mass that continues from the building A. This is, again, looking at the corner down, you're looking to the right down Park, and you're looking to the left down the commercial service road. And then it's just spinning all the way back around. We're back on Brooks now. We're looking towards the intersection with Park. And it's just to give a sense of what it looks like turning to the back of the building. Note we've got this wall here. We are going to build a wall that's going to screen the parking behind building A. So if you come down Brooks, you don't see the parking, the cars parked on the surface lot. You just see construction. Just some close-up shots from the street, just to give a sense of what it's going to feel like on the street. Again, just trying to create a sense of rhythm. You know, one of the comments that came out of the HTC was with getting rid of the commercial on the ground floor, would like to see more of a rhythm of the brick coming to the ground. So creating that rhythm of the brick columns, setting the secondary materials back, making nice entrances for the apartments with some relief to try to create a really nice pedestrian experience as you come down. So I think we've been over this. You know, it's 180 units split between the two buildings. You know, 1 and 2 bedroom units. Obviously, the ADA units, we will meet all the zoning requirements, code requirements for ADA across the 2 buildings. You know, beyond this, we've got amenity package for the buildings. We've got, you know, club rooms and pools and things like that for the tenants. So this is the below grade parking under building B, just to illustrate that. You come down a ramp after you come onto our site, and it's just a full tray of parking underneath the parking lot in the building above. This is the full site plan. So again, you can see, I'll just keep doing this. Park is down here. This is the commercial service road. So you're turning off a Park onto the commercial service road. you're either left into building A or right into building B to access the parking. Again, all the parking screen behind the buildings. You can see the units lined up. We have aggregated the two lobbies for both buildings right there at the corner of the Commercial Service Road. So once you get off the Commercial Service Road, the residential runs down the rest of the street. In Building A, it runs around the corner, all the way to where we get back to our green space at the edge there, which is part of our stormwater management. The upper floors, it just becomes a stack. You'll see here in Building A, this is a captured courtyard on top of the concrete podium. So pool, outdoor amenity space for the tenants, but screened inside of the development. Once we get to this floor, it's the building stacks all the way up for the two buildings. Same thing. So you can see that, you know, a lot of the units get balconies, but not all the units get balconies. It's probably 70% of the units have balconies. And then up to the roof, so the Building A, we hit the roof plane of that fourth floor, one more floor on level 5 on Building B, and then the roof plan. So hip roofs all the way around, but then we've got the gables on Building A. Elevations, just to delineate the two, you know, you'll note that what we tried to do with Building B on the height, you'll see that there's not a whole lot of height difference between the two with the roofs. We're trying to use the roof of Building B to really push it down, and so push the units, actually some of their ceiling height up into the hips of the roof. And then by setting it back, try to really reduce visually that 5th floor on Building B. And that's it.
Great, thank you. A couple of questions to kind of clarify things. The service road.
Yes.
What is your proposal showing? How does it get resolved at the other end? I know what our master plan is aspiring to get things interconnected, but what ends up happening at current state when that gets built?
So what we have been talking with planning is that it was a requirement of this development to dedicate, to build the Commercial Service Road up to our development to access our parking. Further than that, we were to dedicate property around Building B on our side. So the way it was, each
Okay, use your cursor. Start with, you come in off of Park.
coming
right?
off of Park,
And how far is that going to be finished? That drive right there?
all the way to here.
To there. Okay,
Yes.
so then above that it's just dedicated space, and then on the east-west.
Yes, so
diagonals.
we are dedicating space here
Okay.
for sort of our half of the Commercial Service Road when it gets developed. The rest of the Commercial Service Road gets developed, as we understand it, when the other property owners dedicate under redevelopment for the other half of the required 31-foot right-of-way.
Okay. All right, and the other thing is, how many units are on level 5, the proposed level 5 of Building B?
I'm going to have to count it through, but I think it's probably 26.
Okay.
Yeah.
Call it 26, until somebody says otherwise.
Yeah, so
All
something
right.
26, 28.
Okay.
Can you speak up?
In a
It's hard
minute,
to hear.
I'm sorry, what?
Can you speak
Oh,
up?
can I?
It's hard to hear.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Anyone talking on the panel, please.
Okay, sure. Okay, thanks for letting us know. I'll get closer to the mic. Are any of the ground units, do they have entrances from the street, or are they all internal corridor entrances?
No, they're all from the street.
Okay.
So, you know, this wasn't necessarily something that came out of the HTC or the community comments, but you know, you will be able to park in the back and come in the back of your unit, but we wanted to have a front door on the street. So it seemed like if we were gonna have units down there, we wanna activate the street with a little porch and a front door. I mean, maybe I can just go back to, so the image on the top right, that is one of the entrances to one of those apartments. So you actually get a stoop, a little porch area, you recess in. So we thought it was important to activate those residences on the street
Yeah.
to be,
Okay. I know Chris introduced this and explained that the traffic study wouldn't be required until it's a final plan or
Preliminary plan,
preliminary
yeah.
plan. But have you all done any work? Have you commissioned anybody to do the study yet?
We have lined up someone, but they haven't started.
No preliminary findings or anything yet?
no.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
What is the, I guess I'm overwhelmed with questions at this point, but when you look at the elevations, the black and white elevations that you guys provided, what is the actual topographic change from the corner of Brooks and Park at Building A to the end of your property at Building B, along that street section that you show in elevation number 1?
Oh, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I mean,
It's
there's-
18 feet.
What?
It's 18 feet.
Okay.
So what that means is this elevation that you have drawn that shows floor level lines going across, if all of your units are direct access onto the street, on Building A, you got to figure out how that's going to work, because from one side to the other, if you're going to keep your floor lines level and everybody's going to walk straight into the unit and you're not going to depress units underground, you're going to have a floor line that's 4 to 6 feet above eye level at the corner. What that means on Building B, contrary to what's drawn here, is that whole building is going to shift up based on the high side of the plan to be another 12 feet taller, or you're going to solve it some other way. But you know, that's question. You know,
Right.
how are you going to deal with the significant change in grade from one end of your frontage to the other? Because there are lots of things that can be impacted at, or can be resolved at final site plan, but the general approach to that and how it impacts building height is incredibly pertinent to where we are right now. And none of your drawings seem, and maybe you can point me to something.
So just kind of for the record, where did you get your 18 feet from? Is there a
I got it
topo
from
that-
the topo in the packet.
Okay.
Existing conditions.
Yeah, there's existing,
Okay.
there's existing topo
Alright.
lines through the street center and at the curbs.
Is that in my packet?
And that's the whole thing, obviously.
Do you want the
Yeah.
So to your point, it's like
plans?
4 foot.
Yeah.
on B, and it's like 8 feet on the
Okay,
other.
4 to 6, I mean, it
Yeah.
depends, but.
So
but
let's
it's-
get back,
Yeah.
let's get back to the question.
Yeah, so my question is, have you addressed topo anywhere in this?
Let's see.
And elevation difference?
Are you saying the grade changed by 18 feet?
Yes, if you bear with me a second, I'll get you the packet
No,
page
this is the
number.
full set of plans.
It is, for our staff, it's package page 786.
I don't know how to zoom in.
Do you know what plan sheet that is?
It is plan sheet,
AS03. It's,
AS
236.
1.03.
So this
So you've
one.
got an existing elevation of 486 at the corner of Brooks and Park, and you've got an existing elevation of 492.7 at the corner of the south corner of the lot line at Building B.
That's a problem. All right. So the question on the table is what's happening to the plan to address the topo change? And it sounds like right now you can't answer that.
Well, I will tell you that, you know, part of the reason of having the separate entrances, and we've got a taller first floor, is we will end up, you know, all of those apartments might end up on different levels as you migrate that grade from one corner to the other. And then one of those buildings is gonna then sit up again as we cross the commercial service road. I can't say that we've worked out all the way through exactly how those entrances are gonna step.
I'll say there are two separate but distinct issues here. The issue that you're talking about, how you deal with the units and steps up into the unit, that to me is something that can be worked out, assuming you have a plan so that you don't have a floor level that's 6 feet above grade at the corner.
Right.
I will buy that that's addressable when you actually get into designing it. The bigger issue is, since you're coming here for a height waiver and you're looking at that elevation of the street, you have an elevation that you presented to us that says, you know, perceptually these buildings aren't that much different. The when in reality, if that 5-story building is 12 feet, 15 feet higher to deal with grade,
Before it even starts. the
that,
first
that,
floor, yeah.
that matters from an elevation and it matters from a discussion point here.
Fair enough.
All right. Any other questions?
So
Go,
I
Sharon.
just do have one more. So the rationale for the fifth floor is just density?
It's density to support the parking that we're doing and the commercial service road that the development's building. So it is just to get enough revenue. I mean, I won't speak for the developer, but it's to get that density to support the infrastructure.
Okay.
Can I ask you what the percentage of the green space is right now for the project?
I don't know off the top of my head what the percentage is, but we meet the green space requirement as we've submitted it.
Does that include the sidewalk to the curb? Because that's the only green space I'm really seeing in this.
No, we've got green space on,
Yeah, you want to go back?
yeah, can we go back? So everything coming down here, this is all green space that's on our property. This around here is green space on our property. So all of that, and some of that's part of our stormwater, bioswales, and some of it's just planted green space.
But it meets the requirement of green space that was met by the city.
What is the delta in green space between what exists today, green space slash pervious surface? Just rough percentages. What's the delta between what exists today and what this is?
I would say it's a huge delta in terms of, because it's a lot of grass. I mean, you take out the existing structures that are there.
I mean, there's a fair amount of asphalt out there too. I mean, aside from the one lot that was demolished, there's a
I
sizable.
can't tell you exactly what it is, but
Based on what's in the packet in the stormwater management calcs, it goes from 33% impervious coverage to 88% impervious coverage.
okay.
I'll help you out.
All right. Any other questions before we go to the public? Not yet? No? Okay.
I'm sure I'll come up with more as we go.
All right, so we're going to go to public testimony. I'm going to start with in person. We haven't done this in a while, so let me explain that we'll have a timer on for 3 minutes. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you can't get them all in 3 minutes, we will certainly accept additional comments in writing after the meeting or during the meeting while you're finishing up. I'll press the timer, it'll turn green. When there's 30 seconds left, it'll turn yellow, and then it turns red at the end of 3 minutes. When you come up, state your name and address. If you're not comfortable stating your address in public, then at least the neighborhood you're from. I get the sense there's going to be a few people speaking, so help me out here, and whoever gets up there first, great, but then try to line up or try to get yourselves ready to speak after whoever's up there, so I don't have to keep asking for somebody else to come up. So, and then after we do the in-persons, I'll have the tech team play the video again, and we'll go to online testimony or online comments when we're wrapped up internally, all right? So if anybody would like to comment on this application, please step up to the podium and let's get started. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Joan Berkowitz, and I live on Park Avenue. The first thing that I want to say, because I'm very angry tonight, is that Chris Berger, you should be fired for your misrepresentation to the city council that allowed them to go against the HDC ruling of historic designation of the buildings that are planned to be demolished. The next thing I want to say is that this is not the field of dreams. Build it and they will come. There has to be a specific critical need for these apartments now that is not being fulfilled and not in this location. Are the MARC trains empty? Not that I can see. Amtrak owns the rails. Are they going to support additional trains? Are you basing all of this density on the use of the MARC system? What happens when Amtrak says no? They are in business to move freight, not people. What then? You will have destroyed the very old town that was created as a major asset to the city and the lives of the local people that live here. Then it will be too late. If you tear down existing commercial structures to create urban density without consideration of the existing neighborhood, how does this make life in Old Town any better? The city staff and the Planning Commission need to visualize the impact this will have on the local residents and their property values. This is a mistake of epic proportions. As a Planning Commission, you are responsible for every voice made known and responsible for every action you take. Be clear that you will be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to make a clarification, our staff does a remarkable job. Please understand that the historic designation doesn't fall within our purview, nor the staff's. It is at the direction of the mayor and council what and what doesn't, what applications are entertained for designation. So it is their responsibility to make that determination, not our staff. I have 30 seconds, excuse me. That process duly seen through by the council, not our staff. So just want to make that clear. Who's next?
I'm her husband.
Okay. What is your name, please?
50 years ago.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Paul Berkowitz.
Thank you.
I live on 14 Park Avenue, right across the street from where they're planning on doing this. 50 years ago, when Joan and I got married, we looked all around. We chose Gaithersburg. Why? Great community. We went around the neighborhood, knocked on doors, met neighbors. This is what we saw. This is what we dreamed of. We couldn't afford the house, $57,000, $300 mortgage. We couldn't afford it. We bought it anyway. Putting up, I'm nervous, putting up this monstrosity across from us. We voted for you guys. We paid taxes for 50 years to support the government. The whole idea, Old Town Gaithersburg, it's going. If all of you live in a house, picture this happening to your house, that you made a major investment. We expected to live there, maybe be buried in our backyard someday. We have pets. If you all have children, imagine somebody coming in, the Planning Commission saying you can't have children here anymore. You can't have pets in your house. You're taking it away from us. This is where we planned on living. This is Old Town Gaithersburg. What is happening to Old Town Gaithersburg? It's gone. This is just a commercial investment. And even when they start digging and doing, if you approve this, which we are totally against, what's going to happen to our house? We still hear the train going by and our house shakes a little. What's going to happen when they do all of this? The whole thing is, we don't want to move. That's why we chose the area, because of the charm. Do you all live in Gaithersburg?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you know what we're talking about. Imagine this happening to you. They're going to put up what these guys are talking about across from you if you live in a residential area. Yes, it was zoned commercial maybe 100 years ago, but come on, guys and girls. This is a devastation to us. And yeah, we're only 2 people. We raised our daughter there. But it's more than just 2 people. It's the whole community and what's happening right across from us, and it will happen all over, and you're chasing us out, just like someday it will happen to you. And what are you going to do if you allow this? I know my 2 minutes is up, but please don't let this happen. And parking? Our street is filled with parking now. And you're gonna put 180 units up? It's devastating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for commenting tonight. Who's next? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Thelma, and I live right across the street of where that building are planning to be. So let me ask you, how many of you guys know exactly where Park Avenue and Brooks Avenue is? How many of you guys walk down there?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Okay, how
We all live down the
recently?
street.
How recently have you guys gone there?
Very recently.
Last couple
Okay,
days.
so you do know that parking there is, well, even going two ways, it is horrible. We can't even go. We have a funeral home at the very end, which when there's a funeral, you can't even get through. There's pictures right here of it. You can't get through. So I don't know what delusional world he's in about parking and making those structures that have a lot. You can't narrow the road. He's not here asking to narrow the road. You can't do it. This is a prime example of what happens in that road. This happened maybe about a month ago. I was there when I called the police to report this on that road, accidents all the time on that road. About a week ago, I believe, if you know where Amelia's house is, right where that lot is that he's saying, where right there was a crime. Police were in there the other day just going through because there was a robbery reported, burglary. Okay, so not a safe area. I wouldn't want to invest in there because it's not, not as safe. And Montgomery County, from what I heard, is going high in crime. So I don't think it's a great investment for you there. Not there. Somewhere else in Old Town, but not there. So I've lived there 30 years. We're one of the few Hispanics that have a house that we own there. We love my neighborhood, love our neighbors. Everybody is there. I lived in Park Station. Park Station is a trap house. Why are you going to bring another building that is more of a trap house? I tell you why. I'm there. You can pull 911 records. I'm #1 calling the police. Hey, I saw a crime. Some guys beating up each other. Hey, some guy dragging a girl on that stop from his car, dragging her. I'm reporting all these crimes all the time. So I don't really think it's a safe area for you to invest in this big, fancy stuff. We got Park Station. He wants height elevation. If you've guys gone to Park Station, it's the fifth floor, right where the parking station is. If you get up there, you can see clear view, part of the whole city. Beautiful view. I love going there. Even now, I'm not a resident. I'll walk to that park station, look at the sky, clear my mind. Beautiful. He wants to come in, he's going to take that. I'm not going to be able to see that. He's going to gentrify more than what it already is. You have the new apartments on East Diamond. They're beautiful. Hey, there's a place that they can go. I don't think they're all rented, actually. I can look. They're not all rented. There is vacancy there. The other one, right here across where the police station, brand new police station is, also, they have vacant units there. They're all luxury end. What is his going to bring more that they're not going to go there? His is not going to attract. I understand you guys, we need money. We want to invest in it. Cool. Not that area. We don't need it. We don't have place to do
30
it.
seconds.
And when he starts moving the ground to start moving it, I will be suing the city along with him because he will affect my house. I don't want any of that. We don't need more property. Not there. Somewhere else. Go somewhere else. Not in front of my house. It's not going to be good. You're gentrificating it more than what there already is. You're going to bring more trap house for more drug money and all that stuff. You can't even control Park Station. And you have police officers and FBI people living there. And it's still a drug house. So,
Thank you.
no, not invested.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Good evening.
Hi, Patrick Stoll, Highland Avenue. So first of all, thank you for the time. Thank you for the time you're spending getting roasted by this community. Thank you for the time. I haven't seen this community rally against something this hard since the Wawa. So yeah, you guys remember. So I'm standing in opposition. I want to make clear I'm not a representative of the community. I do know I don't stand alone. Just look at the email listserv that was going on earlier today and yesterday. I know others share the sentiment. This sentiment is not one that is in opposition to development and investment in Old Town Gaithersburg. nor is it in opposition to advancement or progress to improve the place we live and know and love. What it is in opposition to is this specific development, which is at its core ill-conceived, mismatched, and ill-advised. As a resident of the Old Town neighborhoods, as I said, I live on Highland Avenue, like 3 blocks away from 355. This plan is gravely concerning. A couple major concerns which seem to be ignored by presentations that I have seen so far. Old Town is already a dense area. Adding 180 units to an area that already struggles with parking and traffic due to schools, public transportation, businesses, several already existing apartment complexes, is an idea that I frankly believe should not have made it this far in the process. You can look at the streets, you can look at the locations. There is simply not enough parking despite his insistence of an existing, or the existing plan for more parking. There is not enough parking for 180 units. Anyone who lives in the area can co-sign that. We don't have enough parking as it is. It is almost all permit parking or fight for your life street parking. Thank you. There seems to be a willful ignorance to the amount of parking that this requires, the amount that is presented, and the amount that we already have. The neighborhood already struggles with traffic. I live in the Mega Mart delivery route. I experience cut-throughs from 355. I have in-laws on Walker Avenue who consistently struggle with cut-throughs from 355 so much they had to put a triangle in there because people were trying to pull 50, all right? We don't need more cars to compensate for the struggles we already have. These issues are already experienced. It is going to get catastrophically worse should this plan be continued and approved. This is not just quality of life we are talking about. This is safety for us, our children, and anyone who will live here in the future. It is not to mention the height that seems to be somehow not an issue, the design of the building in a historic district. Building looks great. That's fine. Noise pollution, overcrowding of schools, lack of green space. I could go on. I reiterate, to wrap it up here, I am not against investment. I appreciate that you guys want to invest here. I'm not against development.
30 seconds.
I am against this development. I respect your desire to develop. This is not the one. This is not Rio. This is not the future Lake Forest. This plan is a mistake. I urge the commission, all staff members, and anyone who will listen to pump the brakes and try again. No.
All right, thank you. Who's next? Good evening.
My name is Lori Galetto. I'm an original homeowner in Summit Crossing condominiums on the 300 block of Park Avenue, and I have been a Gaithersburg resident for 11 years, since 2011. I'm here to voice my objection to the proposed site plan. I frequently walk and drive along Park Avenue through Old Town Gaithersburg. When I looked at the proposed site plan, I was aghast at the massive size and footprint relative to the available land and the neighboring businesses and homes. 180 units. I have major concerns regarding the increase in traffic on Park Avenue and surrounding area. Due to traffic volume and speeding cars, I already have safety concerns now. For example, the sharp turn on Park Avenue between Brookson Avenue and Summit Avenue is a particular area of concern. In addition, the community I live in is already suffering from the through traffic that uses Belt Place to reach North Summit and avoid the stop sign at Park Avenue and North Summit. I'd like to point out that Belt Place is a private road maintained by the Condo Association at Summit Crossing. If the proposed plan is permitted, it will put additional pressure on the reserves and operating expenses due to the additional traffic. Therefore, I respectfully request that any traffic studies include the impact on Belt Place and Summit Crossing. In addition, if the proposed plan is permitted, it will also put pressure on the already limited and overcrowded parking on Park Avenue. There is not enough street parking to meet current needs, and there are often cars and delivery trucks double parked on the street. It is for these reasons I strongly object to the proposed site plan and request that the Planning Commission reject the plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm Donald Patty. I live at 104 Russell Avenue, own the Enoch Magruder Thompson House there. And I do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all about concept site plan SP 9149-2021. I encourage you to deny this development application, particularly as it is written, for 5 reasons. First, to begin, this project will demolish 4 historic homes, including 1 home owned by Gaithersburg's first Jewish residents and another called a Rare Gem by our Gaithersburg Historic District Commissioners. Second, it will violate Gaithersburg's Old Town Central Business District height restrictions, which you are already aware of, creating a 5-story behemoth on a street with mostly 1-, 2-, and 3-story homes. These height restrictions were put in place for a reason by the master plan, to stop tall buildings from towering over their smaller adjacent buildings and to prevent sunlight from being blocked. The restrictions should be obeyed and enforced. Third, it will trigger even more overcrowding and traffic in Old Town, slowing access to local shops, restricting through traffic, and affecting access to the MARC train without providing improved egress at key points, including Summit and Brooks, Summit and East Diamond, and Park and East Diamond. Fourth, it will conflict with historic architecture in Old Town, which includes single-family Victorian and craftsman homes right across the street from the proposed development. Combined with the loss of the 4 historic homes, Old Town will lose its identity because of this. And then finally, it will increase crime in the Old Town Gaithersburg area by increasing population density and increasing the number of rental units relative to owner-occupied units. So instead, I recommend that the development plan be modified. First, do not demolish the historic buildings. They are a critical part of what makes Old Town Old Town. Instead, build around 15 Park and maintain the brick theme for the entire property so it fits with the project. Relocate 201 Brooks, 11 Park, and 9 Park to other parts of the neighborhood or city so that they aren't lost to future generations. Second, do not approve or grant the height variance. Homeowners across the street will suffer greatly from the lost sunlight, and the large structures will visually overwhelm their small ones. I lived that myself when I lived in Portland, Oregon, and saw a development go across the street. Third, do reduce the overall number of units in the development from 180 units down to around 80. Fourth, do build 2- to 3-story townhomes along Park Avenue instead of multi-level apartments. The original master plan was better. This concept will better mesh with the properties across the street, maintain the value of those properties, and also create more homeowners in the neighborhood. And then finally, do require at least 50% of the 1- and 2-bedroom units to be condominiums that are owner-occupied. If necessary, consider housing grants as down payments to make these available to lower income units. In closing, I support development in our community and respect developers' desire to make a profit. However, I do not support irresponsible development. Please reject this development application and send the developer back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to comment? Yes, good evening.
Hi, my name's Ed Richley. I'm at 14 Walker Avenue. I just want to call into question the whole idea of density being the solution to all of our problems. Because I've been hearing that for 20 years. And we've had density go in, we've had Archstone go in, we've had crossings go in, and it didn't solve our problems. I think there's less amenity in Old Town now than there was when I moved here. I just walked over here. One restaurant looks like it's gone, it's been there for a long time. Another relatively new one was empty. And another one that just got remodeled was empty. I saw the owner inside talking to somebody instead of working, talking to somebody at the table. It seems like this density we get isn't fixing anything. And so I don't want that to, I want you to reconsider that being a driving force behind this kind of plan. And this, you know, a lot of us moved to Old Town because we like old buildings and the old look. I mean, it's something we like. I know it's hard for some people to believe that, but it's true. And this, this plan doesn't reflect the nature of Old Town at all. People have said it better than I can. But in short, I think it's too many sardines packed into too small a can right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone? Okay. Good evening.
Hi.
Again.
I'm Amelia Barrett. I live across the street from this proposed development on Park Ave. Obviously, everyone saw my midnight email, so I'm not going to review every single detail I included in my PowerPoint presentation. But I really just want to reiterate what everyone said. Bottom line, this proposed site plan is just not compatible with the space that it is proposed for. The density is not compatible. It is not harmonious with the rest of the historic district or the neighbor, or even the recent apartment buildings. It's not. I appreciate the changes they made and the recommendations they took to heart from the HDC, but it still is not compatible or harmonious. The density will just exponentially. I mean, there are currently no residents there. No one lives there. So then add in at least 180 people, probably around 250 if there's 27 or whatever 2-bedroom apartments. The density will exponentially increase the population in this small area that is already compact. There's 382 units at Park Station already. The area just cannot sustain the proposed increase in population and traffic. And all those pictures that I sent, I mean, I live there, I see this, I've been documenting everything since I heard about this, because it's just, I need people to understand what goes on there. You'd have to sit, at the corner of Park and Brooks for 3 whole days to believe some of the craziness that we see there. The design is just not compatible or cohesive with our street, with the non-contiguous historic district. There's really only 3 units between where it ends on Brooks to where these potential historic units could be. So the discussion about a non-contiguous historic district between 15 Park and then 3 houses down to Brooks was kind of a that discussion didn't really hold much water. So like Joan said, this is not Field of Dreams. If you build this, people will not just come to Old Town and stay long term. There's nothing in this site plan that would draw someone to this site that they can't find somewhere else, even at Gaithersburg Station or over at Rio, Crown. There needs to be less units and a larger variety of sizes in these units, from 1 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms to even townhomes or things with lofts. There's nothing family friendly that would encourage a family to move into a unit like that. And maybe that's their plan, I'm not sure. But if I currently have young kids and I have lived in apartments, and nothing in this unit would make me want to do that. So I really encourage the Planning Commission, the mayor, the city council to work with Mr. Siddiqui, SMBW, and any stakeholders to really find the most compatible use. And I also encourage adaptive reuse of the lots at 9 and 15 Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, anyone else in the audience that would like to comment? Please come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. I didn't plan to speak. My name is Maria Harmon. I'm new to Gaithersburg within the last 4 years, and I live at 250 North Summit Avenue. As a new homeowner, I'm very concerned about the safety of our children and the seniors in the community that walk. There's lots of foot traffic on North Summit Avenue, Park Avenue, from Asbury Methodist Village, the seniors that live there that come off of the campus to walk the neighborhoods, the children that are at the elementary school, the middle school, the parents. I'm home a lot, so I see right at that intersection of Park and North Summit and going down to Brooks. When I go out, I hear the tires screeching because there's already a lot of children, a lot of people on the streets, and a lot of cars. And I'm just concerned, even as I've witnessed within the last couple of weeks, kids darting out and drivers, in rush hour rushing. and the volume of traffic if you leave home at 8:15 when school is about to be in session. So I'm really concerned, really from a safety perspective, that this development will impact the home environment that I thought I was buying into on North Summit Avenue. I am really concerned, even for from a traffic perspective, that this development will increase our limited parking on North Summit Avenue at Summit Crossing. We have parking passes to park on Park Avenue, but my parents come to dinner every Tuesday, and every Tuesday we're trying to find parking for seniors already who can't come in safely, and then they walk on the street, and then there's, you know, an overvolume of cars on the street, and people, overvolume of people, and the neighborhood, every neighborhood has its safety concerns and crime, but I am really concerned as a homeowner, the value of my property, as I begin to understand the behavior that exists in the apartments behind me and in front of me. And I truly support that there needs to be a better way
30 seconds.
where we can maybe have townhomes or people that are buying into the community and grants to support new home buyers so they can have a chance to live a better life and to buy in and care, because when you have skin in the game, you're not just renting. I understand some, that's all that they can do, but if we educate and encourage people to seek grants and there's money available for them to be homeowners, it would seem more logical.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? It's a familiar face.
Take the mask off.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mike.
My name is Mike Sesma. I live in West Riding, but my grandchildren live on Park Avenue. I walk my granddaughter to school during phases of when traffic is heavy. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to address the commission and on this development plan. I believe it to be fundamentally flawed. You've heard why. Some of you have identified the reasons why it's flawed. It does not complement or enhance the existing residential neighborhood, and it'll create burdens on the community that the staff recommendation fails to recognize or acknowledge. The fact that a height waiver is needed to make the project viable reveals that the objective of the applicant is to optimize their profit rather than provide a project that enhances the community and contributes to the historic identity of Gaithersburg. The applicant failed to actually study the site and its challenges before acquiring this assemblage and actually understand how the city operates and approves these plans. The city is not responsible for making the applicant whole in this project. They take that risk when they obtain the property, and usually they do great diligence, expend great diligence to find out how these things have been done in the city. Others this evening have addressed all of these issues. I'm going to just focus on the burdens and the lack of compatibility in this setting. I was very disappointed that the staff recommendation and report do not relate the issues and challenges of traffic and pedestrian safety that would be exacerbated by a project of this scale. Brooks, Park, and Russell already are used as cut-throughs to avoid signals at Diamond and Summit, Summit and Brooks. Park Avenue is one of the few city streets where permit parking was implemented years ago, and it's so narrow that it can't deal with two-way traffic. Both Park and Brooks cannot handle two-way traffic now. Speeding on these streets is common at all times and all hours. These problems can't really be addressed by any plan for this project that would add almost 200 residences, even with one parking place per unit. The question is whether those residents will actually use those parking spaces and whether they actually need an additional space to go with it. Those drivers still need to get in and out of that location, and dealing with the cut-through traffic and everything else. The city-owned alley connecting Park and Russell is not a cut-through now, but you could anticipate that 12-foot alley would become a cut-through so that people could avoid traffic on Brooks and traffic on East Diamond. The scale of this project in terms of density and mass is a poor fit for this site. On this issue, the mass issue, and height, the HDC was unanimous in their courtesy review. The developer seems fixed on 180 unit number. Even half of that number would create significant burdens for the neighborhood. The citation of the plans that diversity is important to the redevelopment of Old Town deserves a new look. I supported almost every one of those projects. I approved every height waiver in the last 17 years that was passed by the council. I believe in those things, but the settings for each of those height waivers and the density that we approved was very different than the context for this development. This development does not fit, this project does not fit at this location. We've talked, whether it's about green space or about elevations and dealing with that, it is not appropriate for this site. The modification to the development plan really only change the architecture and appearance of the proposed project. They don't address the fundamental flaws of the project. I urge you not to approve this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, for being here. Thanks, Mike. Nice to see you still involved. Appreciate it. Anyone else, please?
I just want to.
Hang on a second. Looks like somebody else is.
I'm sorry. I don't have much to say. My name is Karen Ryan. I live on Walker Avenue. I've been a resident for over 20 years here. I am completely opposed to this particular project. I'm not opposed to them building something there that was more fit for that space. I'm not opposed to development, but everyone's pretty much addressed all the issues. The traffic is a huge issue with people racing up and down through the neighborhoods. Just safety of, traveling, walking. I run a lot the streets, and it's just, there's a lot of traffic. And I don't think adding this many units is responsible for the city to do that in this location. We love our Old Town and historic neighborhood. I would rather see townhouses or something, single-family homes built in there that people want to be here. This is a great community, but I think this is way too many units for this space. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, okay, please. Ordinarily, it's a one.
I'll make
one
this
time.
quick.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sitting here looking at the logo of Gaithersburg. The tree, the peacefulness of it, everything. This development is coming in and painting it black and cutting down the tree. That's the logo. You guys are familiar with it?
We are.
That's what this development is going to do.
Trees down. Okay, thank you.
You're not going to put a development on top of the city of Gaithersburg. Please do not approve this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else in the chambers this evening that would like to comment? Okay, what I'm going to do now is go ask tech team really one more time just to make sure everybody's clear who's online to play the how-to video, please, for virtual testimony.
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
Thanks. And I have a panel here showing who's raised their hand. I'm not sure what order they came in, so I apologize if you have been waiting. But let's start with Lawrence G. Lawrence, can you hear us?
Yes, hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes. I'm opposed to this plan simply because there's going to be a lot of overcrowding in Gaithersburg. One of the reasons why I moved out to Gaithersburg years ago was because it was literally like open space and not a lot of traffic, not a lot of, people or whatever. And basically with this building or these buildings, it seems like Gaithersburg wants to become Silver Spring because I see a pattern of buildings being built, especially homes, apartment buildings and whatnot. Y'all can barely take care of the people that are here as it is. How are y'all planning on taking care of even more people that come in? I just see it being an issue as far as traffic, crime, all sorts of, problems that Gaithersburg doesn't need right now. And like I said, I just oppose it And I agree with what most everybody else said that opposes this plan. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and I see a hand up from Susie Ward.
Hi, I'm Susie Ward. I live at 437 Gaither Street, and I've lived here for 42 years. I've lived in Gaithersburg most of my life. I would just like to say I'm opposed to this plan. I think that it is bad for, it's going to be bad for the environment. It's ecologically unsound. It removes too much green space. All this extra traffic on 2 lanes, all the streets in Gaithersburg, Old Town, are 2 lanes. It doesn't need any more traffic. These streets are already overcrowded, as people have already stated. So I just want to reiterate, agree with the people that you've already spoken to or listened to, that I feel like this plan has merits. It's just not the right plan for this space. It's way too much density for that little acre and a half or so, whatever it is. I think there should be some green space. There should be some trees. There should be a place that people can be outside and enjoy a little fresh air besides sitting on a concrete front porch or a balcony. The little bit of green space that is left by this project is minuscule, and 180 units with 182 parking spaces. If I miscounted, I'll take that back, but the fact of the matter is most people are going to have 2 cars. Most people, it's not going to be mostly single people that move into this apartment building. They're going to have probably 2 cars. All those cars aren't going to be able to park there, and they're certainly not going to park on the streets. And it's disingenuous to sell somebody or rent somebody a living space where they can't have a place to put their cars. And they won't even be able to, they'll have difficulty turning in and out of their apartments, their driveway, as well as getting onto the other streets. So I think we need to think about our environment and know that our economy is supported by nature. So we have to support our nature and not degrade it
30 seconds.
by thinking we're going to bolster our economy by using up all of our resources. That's not beneficial. But I thank you for reviewing this and listening to all of our concerns. And I ask that you reject this project plan.
Okay. Thank you for participating, even if virtually. Thank you for your comments. I see next Catherine George. Catherine, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, very good. Somebody on your planning commission there asked about the impervious areas and what they are currently and what they will be. And for the 2 apartment buildings, the total site area for analyzing the environmental site design to the maximum extent practicable for this project is 1.80 acres as the LOD, limit of disturbance. The existing impervious within the LOD is 0.63 acres, and the proposed impervious is 1.60 acres. And the existing is 35%, the proposed is 89.90%. And this is with Exhibit 71, which is called Stormwater Management. It was dated January 25th and April 24th, 2022, and it was approved June 8th by Gaithersburg Department of Public Works, and that report is 40 pages. Secondly, regarding the proposed stormwater treatment, there is supposed to be 6 microbiome treatment facilities with I could only find 5, but there's 2 on the north side of the first 4-story building, and there's 3 on the alleyway that you're going to build by the larger building, Building B. And these patches of grass, which will catch and drain stormwater, seem to be an area of about 5,900 square feet or 0.13 acres, which is pretty small. And I'm wondering who's going to look after these, especially over time. Is water going to be fully absorbed by the 5 patches of grass and plants? Or is water going to ooze onto the sidewalks or into the parked cars, or what the heck's going to go there? And over the longer term, which is 5 or 10 or 15 years, who's going to take care of these and ensure the plants still grow and don't get weedy? So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let me look here for a second. Susan Baker, is that right? Yeah, Susan Baker, are you on? No? Yes. You're on.
I'm here, yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity. With full disclosure, I must tell you, I live on the west side of 270. I moved up to Gaithersburg because it reminded me of Bethesda when I was growing up. It was all farms, it was very bucolic. Gaithersburg has become choked. And to see another development being insinuated into a neighborhood that's a neighborhood, it's historic, it's kind, it's walking friendly, and you're bringing this high density development of renters. Now, some renters will stay forever, but especially in this area, renters come and then they go. Maybe they're there a year, maybe 5 years, but with the change of administration in DC, the changeover is constant. So you don't have that sense of, even as a renter, ownership. You don't have that sense of community. And this complex sets off little alarms in my head, just like what's being discussed over at Lake Forest. I look at what's gone over at the Crown, I look at the Kentlands, I look at King's Farm, and I look at the traffic that chokes 270. And all the plans for 270 are just going to choke it more. So there has to be a better sense of open space. Like everybody who's spoken about has talked about the green, they've talked about the balance between people, buildings, and green, the quality of life. And most importantly, since I'm in the process of looking for a job now, how are these people going to get to and from jobs? What jobs are they going to have? Are they going to be at all the biotech things in Gaithersburg? Or are they going to try to go downtown for government jobs or Bethesda for NIH and stuff like that? I just think it's too many people. I think that there's not enough thought about transportation, about green space, air, breathability, communicatability. And yeah, I'm very grateful to be able to say just a little bit about this plan. I love the neighborhoods over there and would love to be able to live there. I just can't right now. So, please don't ruin it. Don't ruin life. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you for being with us and for your comments.
You're welcome.
All right, there's a hand up for D. Sarabia.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
We sure can, thanks.
Okay, my name is Debbie Sarabia. I live in Saybrook, about a mile from Old Town. I appreciate the commission taking our comments tonight. I'm an advisor and the former president of Seneca Creek Watershed Partners. We're a local volunteer organization. And I need some more information on the environmental aspects of this project. First of all, 21 trees would be removed, but there are 24 listed on the plans, including 3 off-site. Could someone explain this? There are 2 specimen trees located a few inches from the property line on Brooks, and I wonder if you can revise the plan to save those trees. Okay, third, which is probably my biggest concern, is I'm not confident about the stormwater management. The receiving watershed, which is Seneca Creek, is already densely developed, and the remaining open space in this watershed in the city continues to be converted to impervious residential, commercial, and transportation uses. Right now, there are 10 other development projects in Gaithersburg that will be stressing our watershed, including this one. This proposed project, as others have noted, will increase the impervious surface from the current 35%, which is buildings and parking lots, to 89.9%. That's massive. There is virtually no green space incorporated into the design. There were 14 environmental site design alternatives evaluated. None of those were considered feasible, and that was mostly because the large impervious footprint of the project rendered most alternatives useless. The city does recognize there are serious stormwater and drainage issues in Old Town, including in the project area. Currently, the city is conducting a study to address those conditions. The city is also working to address road salt pollution. The impervious area of this project would require yet more salt. But despite the sensitivity of the drainage in Old Town, this project's stormwater analysis is rather sketchy. The stormwater report states a detailed analysis of the site outfalls will be completed on the next phase to determine adequacy without downstream impacts.
30 seconds.
And the stormwater conditional approval notes is interesting. It says there are issues with pipe sizes and that the actual extent of new storm infrastructure is unknown and that the public storm drains may need to be reconstructed. So I think it would be wise to withhold the project until the headwater study and the stormwater analysis is complete. Or even better, redesign the project for a much smaller footprint. That would help a lot of these issues. Thanks so much.
Thank you for being on. Is Jan Diaz on?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Hi. Good evening. My name is Jan Diaz. I currently live at 244 North Summit Avenue, which is in the Summer Crossing development, located at the corner of Park Avenue and North Summit Avenue. Also, Belts Place is a road that it's a private road that connects Park Avenue with North Summit Avenue and allows the residents to have access to exit and entrance from both streets. I've lived in this development for about 14 years now, and I've seen some of the changes that have taken place, which have involved increased development, over the years, me and my wife, we actually got 2 kids, 6 and 4 years old, and they like to ride their bikes up and down Belts Place. And we have like a metallic brown tree, no park area. They love to ride around there. And my concern is that this development that's coming up the road from us is I definitely feel that it's going to increase the amount of traffic that's in the area, as voiced by many of the other citizens tonight. It's a 180 unit development, and it's definitely going to increase the amount of people in the area more so than what was there before. And my concern is that, and it's currently happening right now, there's people cutting through our developments, even though it's a private road, and we maintain it, not the city. People cut through all the time. My concern is that with the addition of this development, there's going to be so many more people on these roads trying to cut through more, and it's going to put my kids in danger. They're already in danger right now. I'm always out there with them, warning them of the cars, look out for the cars, watch out. And to have, an additional, so much more cars in the area due to this development, I'm very concerned that it's going to put them in danger. My kids and everyone else's kids too. So I definitely oppose this development. At this time, I understand that a traffic study is not part of this developments right now, of this approval, but I definitely think that it should be taken a look at, a serious look to see what are the impacts that traffic will bring to the area before approving this development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being on tonight. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands on the online participants. Let me look to the crowd here. If there's anyone else that hasn't already spoken.
Really quickly.
Okay, please.
So if you guys
Come to the podium and, again, for the record, and so we can have it in the transcript, your name and address.
Hi, my name is Thelma. So if you guys know exactly Park Avenue and Brooks Avenue, you know where that house, where the stop sign is on that house, it's 18 Park, you know exactly what I'm talking about? So if you've seen that during spring and summertime, you see that it's the house with the most beautiful flowers, that has flowers all around. His height thing will block the sun to my flowers. So we get compliments. Everybody will go walk through there, will take pictures with those flowers because the flowers are so beautiful. I won't grow those flowers anymore because that will block that part. So if, that's a beautiful house that contributes to the city of Gaithersburg because of the flowers. If he puts that building, I won't have my beautiful flowers. It'll make the city look ugly in that corner. So please, I need my beautiful flowers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, great.
All right, anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak tonight? I think it's here. Okay. So what I need to do now is turn to the commissioners here and see if we can figure out a way to wrangle some of this together. The first thing I want to do is, at least for the short term, answer some of the questions that came up, and I came up with a few. There's plenty of other issues to talk through, but very specifically, somebody threw out the number 180 units with 182 new parking spaces.
May I request that you speak louder?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get on the
Thank you.
microphone. Apologize. Chris, can you confirm that it's 182 parking spaces proposed for the proposed 180 units, new
Correct.
units? Is that right? Okay. So that was a correct statement. The afforestation plan, that's not final yet, though, is it? So the calculation of trees being taken and those being replaced and how?
There's a natural resources inventory forest stand delineation to determine what trees are there right now. In terms of forested area, that's still in flux. That'll be determined at preliminary final site plan.
Okay. A question kind of for the applicant's team, just broadly. Was there a scheme ever in play that would somehow use the existing houses, whether they were incorporated into a building or relocated, or any strategy to try to use the houses that are on those sites now in some form in your new project? Was that ever considered?
No, it wasn't.
No, okay.
They weren't designated, and it wasn't part of it.
Doesn't matter whether they're designated, I'm just asking if they were.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. What else do I have for questions? I think that was it in terms of what came up. Chris, maybe you can also comment on the stormwater management status right now. What's in the record versus what will come later?
Right, concept plan is approved, so they would need to get a final approval at preliminary final. So they still have things to work out, as was mentioned, but they're well aware of that, and stormwater would not have approved the concept if they felt that there were fatal flaws that it couldn't continue.
Okay. So has there been any preliminary analysis shown and discussed with staff?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So those were the questions I heard that we could address tonight. Now, I want to try to wrangle some of the big themes here and see what we want to do about it. I do think our master plan does set a vision for some aspirations for our different areas and zones and neighborhoods. There is a thematic thing in that talks about neighborhood conservation. Those actual words are used somewhere. I can't tell you which chapter, but generally speaking, it's important to us to respect the nature, the quality of life, all of that in neighborhoods, and not do something that would undermine that or certainly destroy that. So I want to make sure we keep that theme kind of high in our mind when we start talking through some of these strategies and what issues there are to discover, because it's not as if we're going into a large development on a green field where we get to dictate what that looks and feels like. There's already a really strong context here to respect and to understand and to not only not harm, but somehow embellish and somehow lift up a little bit. So sort of theme one. And I need to put that on the record in terms of what, if anything, the applicant's team could come back with that would address that particular item. So that's sort of the first thing I want to propose. The second, the two biggies are traffic and parking. So let me posture it this way. So traffic in my mind comes up on sort of 3 or 4 planes. The first is just raw volume and what that does to the roads and network of roads in and around the property. And we don't know yet because the study's not there. But we've all been through enough projects with more than a few units to understand there will be impact. There's no question. So here's the big suspicious thing about it. The roads that are there were designed for a relatively low density neighborhood, and they're paved that way, they're sectioned that way, they're parked that way. So we have to really understand more clearly whether they can actually handle it, physically, because we study geometry, we study road sections, we study traffic patterns. And one of the things that makes it really suspicious is right now for those 182 proposed parking spaces, there's only one way in and one way out from the property, and that one way in and one way out is onto not a very wide street. So it's a tertiary street unto itself, and it's the only way in and out of this little project. So that becomes very suspicious to me in terms of not only volume but traffic movement and traffic efficiency. So I think we have to understand that a little better. And these residential streets, they were built at a time, or at least the right-of-ways were established at a time when even the current cut-through in commercial traffic was far less. So they've already taken on the burden of modern traffic patterns without any real serious improvement. So now this would come along and just by, I think, intuition, because we don't have any data yet, but it's pretty clear that there would be an impact of some kind, so we have to understand what it is. So that's sort of the next big. On the parking side, 1-to-1 on a development this large is also very suspicious because you have people that own more than one vehicle. You have at any given time, any one of those residents could be having just a friend over for dinner, or and even worse, a party of 15 people showing up to try to get on the property. And actually, you want to encourage that. We want people to have a vibrant and really full living experience. And if you begin to set it up where if they even want to have their own, friend over for something and there's nowhere to park, or they're parking in the street and they're having issues with, with space, then we've done nothing to embellish the experience of what would then become new members of the neighborhood. So that to me becomes like a really big question on the table for you guys to figure out, because I don't really care what the technical calculation is for parking, because at this point, there's enough pressure on this block that we can sense that there's going to be those issues, those residual issues that we've got to address now before this gets too much further. The general topic that's come up a couple of times too is compatibility, and I want to be very careful. We have a version of compatibility, the word compatibility in our zoning ordinance that kind of gives us our marching orders for what we decide we can do and can't do. Broadly speaking, though, we can apply that how we need to for a project. So it could be architecture, it could be these issues with parking and traffic, it could be the massing, yeah, just the general shape and size of things, and all that's in play right now. And there is nothing about this yet that's compatible under any of those columns. If you came in and kind of proved that it was architecture that was a lot like the neighborhood, and so look how well it blends. Okay, good argument. Building A has a better shot at it than Building B right now, I think. And that the height restriction is breached for the purposes of trying to get to some viable project. I think somebody actually brought this up very specifically. Also makes this very suspicious because in my mind, in a neighborhood that's already well-established with a strong context, a project should be viable when it sort of steps back from those limitations and works under, a more modest use of what's available. So I want to see some more work done around that and more discussion with staff on that. The technical piece that Phil brought up about the elevation change, and I don't get the sense you guys have actually worked that out yet. So you're asking for a waiver on the height, and yet really haven't studied what the height is. So 4 stories versus 5 means nothing if the building that's 5 stories starts out at a datum that's 12 feet higher. So I think that has to be understood in the context of what the actual topo is, and actually taking advantage of whatever that might be. So it might make sense that if there's a need for anything to do with verticality, it happens where the site is, relatively speaking, lower and is less impactful to what's happening next to it. So again, another kind of area of suspicion. I would revisit, and I'm trying to pull an example out of my head, but the only thing I can think of were the Spike properties that refused to sell, and so buildings built around them and the house remained. And I don't want to encourage that, but there are good examples of projects where a solid building on the site that established the street presence or established the context for the rest of the development could be used and could be incorporated into the project. And whether it's in this case, maybe it's an amenity building. Maybe one of the houses is repurposed for the clubhouse, or for the amenities for the residents, and retains its kind of dignity right there on the street, but really becomes something else. That's the possibilities we would really like to see explored here. Now, if you get down the road and you say, well, here's some issues with doing that, we'd like to talk more about that. It's not something that's a foregone conclusion that you just have to scrape the site clean and then move on with something that's just kind of flown in from somewhere else. Traffic height, historic houses. There was another theme that came up that I also find very, very important, especially within the historic district. And it's the idea of uniqueness, where sense of place is another one of those kind of overarching themes that we've often tried to promote in our master plan. So it's one thing to say, close to the street, nice architecture, and less than 4 stories. That's the kind of old-fashioned zoning way of talking about something. But the reality is the sense of place that Old Town needs to be either not tampered with or embellished and brought up. So the building that goes into a place like this has to look, feel, be something that actually brings that image through, not just, is kind of compatible because it has gables on it or something, whatever it might be. And I don't want to be flip about it because I know you worked hard on getting where it was, but I don't think it really does show a sensitivity to where it is and its true sense of uniqueness and sense of place. So that's another kind of overarching issue I see coming up over and over again. And finally, I think, and this is not a planning commission issue per se, but it bears repeating that there's an impact for doing all rental versus ownership type housing. And it doesn't preclude having the range of housing we expect for things like affordable housing for both rental and ownership, but to do everything on the same tier, which this appears to be, which is a rental that's, I don't know what tier it's on in terms of price point, but it's all one thing.
These are market rate apartments.
Right, but whose market, right? I mean, so the thing is, if it's all
Market
rental,
rate means they're not affordable, they're market rates.
We understand, he's saying that they're very homogeneous. The types of
it's
units
all one
very
type. So whatever your
homogeneous.
price point is, it's this narrow, not this. It's not this wide. So it doesn't necessarily invite in a lot of a diversity of people to live there, and it certainly doesn't have any ownership, which I think is important to an established neighborhood. So these are the big themes I'm hearing, and I feel like. No, I don't feel like. What I think we need to do is move forward very slowly, addressing those issues. I'm going to open this up. I'm not going to dominate this whole discussion, but conceptually, take these themes back with staff and really begin to work through how to solve for them, with the understanding this is a very, very special site. This is a very, very special opportunity, and it warrants a lot more thoughtfulness on all these sort of tentacles that address these issues, I think. So anything else you guys want to add?
I'll let others.
Well,
me.
I'll discuss just a little bit some of the technical concerns. So I think I was really impressed with the amount of work that the neighborhood put into reviewing some of the preliminary technical documents and a lot of the energy that went into reviewing them. I would encourage you to go back and look at them closer. There's some great information there, particularly when it comes to environmental concerns and stormwater concerns. Any new construction here is going to be a considerable upgrade to the existing property. I know it's going to be hard to understand why grass is not as good as a cell that contains both, mineral and volume to stormwater, but it is. It's an engineering problem. So it's a great thing, and I know it's complicated, but it's new construction is a wonderful thing for our environment, for our stormwater management. The traffic issues is going to be a big one, and the only difference I would take with the chair is that, with our two big projects in Old Town, we actually built 2 new roads behind both of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't without new construction. We built an entire, curb and gutter all the way up the 2 main roads, and then created 2 entirely new streets. So there are ways to improve the traffic infrastructure in Old Town, and still have a busier traffic environment. Certainly, my kids went through all 3 Gaithersburg schools, and they ran around and ran across the middle of the street in Old Town way too many times. But that urban condition was something that we talked about in 2002, when at least 2 or 3 of us up here were on, the master planning process for Old Town, and we're desperate for housing, right? So the housing element, which, I'm not going to make a personal appeal, but the housing element is a really important part of how this city is going to survive and improve. And I know that there's, Marie's testimony to the Old Town, there's some great, history to how we've developed Old Town, and the housing that we have built hasn't necessarily solved a lot of our problems, but not building housing wasn't solving our problem either. So, trying to find the right mix, to your point, and putting the right product at this corner is really our goal. So I'll speak for myself and say density is not my fear. And improving this site with new construction is absolutely my goal as a architect and a planner and someone who lives right next to Old Town. And certainly for the last 20 years or so in the Planning Commission has been our goal. With that means, I think the compatibility issue that John, you're really talking about has a lot to do with creativity and uniqueness, not necessarily the sort of postmodern, modernist aesthetic, anything like that. I don't know that that's, you're kind of hinting at that a little bit, John, but maybe that's the easiest solution. But I think something that has a personality similar to Old Town, not, mirrored, but similar to Old Town in its expression would be wonderful. Something creative, I think, is what this corner really deserves. So that's my thought.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what the chair said and what my other fellow commissioners have said. I think the thing that concerns me a great deal is the fact that I don't find anything in this project that integrates the community. There are no amenities that allow the community, the public, to participate in this building, which is an integral part of what Old Town really is, as you heard tonight. People like to walk up and down the streets. They enjoy the neighborhood, the tranquility. There's no park. There's nothing in this project that would allow this to expand. And I think that if we're going to go forward with something like this, this thought has to be incorporated into whatever plan comes through in the future. That's my 2 cents.
I think, to pile on or tag on here, I think, the compatibility issue is the one that's in the forefront of my mind. I own a house right up the street. I lived there for 5 years with my kids sitting on the front porch at 104 Brooks. Still own it today. Know the area well. Walked it this morning. Trying to envision what the architecture is, what the massing is, what the density is that allows that humane transition from single-family residential to the commercial density that we want in the rest of Old Town is the trick here. And looking at the plans as they're presented, I struggle a little bit at the concept phase because we're talking about detailed architecture far earlier than we typically are. Right. So if I put my blinders on and pretend you didn't show me anything except what you have on the screen that I can see, which is a site plan that talks about number of units, number of cars, site circulation, even at that level, before we get into setbacks, before we get into articulation, before we get into height waivers, the fundamental question is there a plan for this site that can support 180 units and the necessary parking for it on this acreage that blends humanely with the community? What I've seen here says no, but that's just based on what I've seen. I think that the height waiver, again, based on the information here, certainly needs a lot more study based on topography. If I'm reacting to what's in the packet, you know, those buildings as presented are not, you know, do not conform with some of the surrounding uses. They do not, you know, reflect the character of Old Town. You could pick this building up as it's presented. You could drop it in Crown. You could drop it in any one of probably 400 different multifamily mixed-use developments anywhere in the country, and it would blend, right? And so, you know, it gets us into that nuanced debate about what is compatibility, what is uniqueness, and how is that reflected. What's here is not it. You know, compatibility goes down to things like setbacks and streetscapes and pedestrian experiences from one side of the street to the other. And what's proposed here is you know, it's you know, the Jekyll and Hyde experience of walking down the street. If you walk down one side of the street, you get one experience. If you walk down the other side, you've got a street wall 4 feet off your shoulder on the sidewalk of the face of the building. So that, to the chair's point, there is a lot that needs further study, further resolution, and further investigation here before I'm convinced, even at a concept plan, that you can accommodate 180 units and what should probably be more than 180 parking spaces in a way that jives with the community. Not to mention all of the other technical parking, traffic study, stormwater management things. I'm frankly willing, if you wiped everything off the renderings that you gave us and made it, you know, white wireframe shadow renderings with zero materials, we'd be having the exact same conversation. It's not a lick and stick material issue. It's a massing, it's an articulation, it's a everything else about the building. So I almost want to go back to that level of detail and start having the conversations about the fundamental things and not get distracted by whether it's white brick or red brick or gray. Like that we can argue about materials later once we fix the massing.
So I just don't want to add on to this, but I also, you know, John, you talked about a sense of place. I also would say we need a sense of purpose, and to kind of flange with what Lloyd was saying, you know, our greatest successes were built around community and what the community wanted and what the community really felt was needed because they lived there, they experienced it every day. I would just encourage you to really lean in and engage with the community, to work with them, and to use the work that they've already done, and to really, you know, talk to them. I think they're a great resource for you. Again, our greatest successes have been Kentlands, Crown, Rio, and they all have a sense, a charm, a uniqueness, so I would just encourage you to, before we move on to even approving a concept plan, again, what Phil said, to really dig in.
Anybody? I think what I'd propose, if the commissioners are, I'd like to defer consideration of the approval for this until staff, applicants team, you can work through some of these issues we brought up tonight. Chris, did we give you enough in terms of?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right. Frank, do we need a motion to defer, or do we just do it?
Well,
hang a second.
Well, in terms of, I mean, this being a public hearing, if you are going to defer, it should be deferred to a particular time. So if it's figuring out whether it's whatever date it would be, and that's because basically it's continuing the public hearing.
Fair enough.
And that's the requirement that you would have to do there.
Testimony and by writing, or whatever, yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
I mean,
go ahead.
In fairness to the applicant, isn't this a question for how the applicant would like to proceed? I mean,
no. The applicant, we're at a concept plan, so we have to decide what to do with it.
yeah, I'm saying in light of all these discussions, I mean, if anybody wants to force a vote tonight, which I would not recommend.
Well, that's what I'm asking. My recommendation would be defer. We can talk about timing.
I would
later.
fully support that recommendation to give the applicant time to
Agreed.
adjust. I just want to make sure the applicant is nodding their head in agreement with
Well,
that.
no, the deferrals are the discussion we can have is timing.
No,
maybe.
we can come back with some of these suggestions. That's fine.
How long time?
Yeah.
So,
But the two
Chris.
things that you mentioned, traffic study, we were told the process is that it is done after the concept.
Right.
So that's the reason traffic study was not conducted. Also, all the things that we discussed about the water sedimentation
Stormwater.
control and stormwater management,
Yeah.
the final will be done. Obviously, if it's not approved, the project will not proceed.
Yeah, let me
So
be
those
clear.
are understood.
Yeah.
And there's a timeline that we have to follow, and we were following that timeline.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah.
And I
Now,
think-
one more thing.
Yeah.
The architecture, whether it conforms to the surrounding or not, we have been talking to everybody. We would really like to have some guidelines from you, specific guidelines to follow. Because right now we're talking in the air, it doesn't follow, it doesn't, meld. It's a statement. But you just tell us what to do, so we come with that. We come with that. In the last meeting, the Historic Commission, they gave us suggestions. Whatever they said, we incorporated that. And when we came this time, we thought because the Historic Commission gave us some points, and we responded to that, that means this issue is no longer there. So, I mean, the part of it, everything is, you cannot satisfy everybody, you have to understand that. I mean, you guys are in the business.
Yeah.
Development, whenever it happens, people object to it. Some people have some, ideas. Some people have some, vested interest.
Okay, let me help you here.
And let me tell you, people who are objecting today,
Yeah,
I met some of them, most of them. And they advised me that if you build townhouses, we're going to support you. And then, when we came up with this project, they took a position behind the historic, because they thought they can just kill the project if it's historic. So there's a politics going on around here.
okay, let me try to clarify. I think what you heard, you may not have, because there was a lot of comments, but one of the things that I heard over and over, there is not a consensus that there should be no development here. And I'm not sure there's a consensus there should be, but at least there's a reasonable number of people that support the idea. And I think we do in general, because we authored the master plan. I mean, we have in our master plan proposals for developing this site, or at least guidelines and an aspiration for developing the site.
And the desperate need for housing in Oldham.
Yeah. So I think what I would invite you to do is work with staff to look at this list of concerns, and I think Commissioner Wessel helps to frame it up better, which don't worry about the architecture yet. This is about the bigger picture issues with compatibility in the neighborhood, with circulation, with traffic, with the size and placement of the buildings, the matching of parking opportunities with the number of units, the types
But
of
you
units.
want to do that before the approval of concept plan? Because we were told that traffic study is conducted
I understand
after
that.
the approval.
And
that is the procedure laid down here.
I understand that, and that might actually be an issue that we have to take offline and discuss with the city attorney and with staff about how we address that problem. That it may not be a traffic study, it might be just a more common sense look at the matching of parking with new units and what we know about existing traffic and parking issues in that area. And at a more
Surrounding
narr-
overflow, all the rest
yeah,
of that stuff.
At more of a narrative level, not so much a data and study level. But there may be something in between that we can work out, and you and staff can figure that out.
And it's to your, regardless of what the code says and regardless of what the process is, it is a massive risk mitigation tool for you to pull that earlier, because the last thing you want to do is invest money in a final site plan and then figure out, oh crap, this doesn't work because I've got to fix 17 intersections and widen 32 roads. Like you're right.
I don't disagree with you there. I totally agree with you. But we just followed the procedure. That's what I'm telling
Fair
you.
enough. Okay. Fair enough. And I appreciate that. I don't want to I want to compliment the work you have done. I know you're working with HTC or had, and you're doing very thorough work with the plan you have. But I think it brought to light a lot of issues that need to be addressed, and whether that was obvious or brought into the discussion before this, I don't know. But at least it's early enough in the process we can take it on and figure it out.
Recognizing you're on your second design already, and it's still not meeting it. We understand all that.
I mean, it's been almost over a year and a half. It's not second design. I mean, with the staff we have worked, the staff has really worked, thoroughly, and they advised us, and whatever they told us, we kept working.
Understood.
We did talk to the neighborhood, and whatever feedback we got from there, they were all incorporated. There was a bridge joining the two buildings. They didn't like it. We said we'll remove it. There were so many things.
We read the package.
Yeah, and we appreciate the effort. It's just not there yet. And I think we've outlined the issues that still need to be addressed to really get it to where it needs to be. Chris, did we give enough direct? I mean, I'm looking to you because you're going to end up having to follow up with a lot of this.
Yeah.
So, this is maybe a question for everybody, but to Shaquille's point, if it comes back to staff, do you feel like you understand to give us more specific direction around things like massing or density that we can absorb? Because I think it is fair to say that we have heard these comments, we've come to these meetings and updating the plan, and I think more, I mean, if it's literally pointing to another development and say that is, we think, a good example. Or
Give some
pointing
example,
to
yeah.
something more specific, because we are balancing through HTC, planning, the neighborhood. We're trying to balance everyone's interest here and also make something that's viable in the market. So it would be helpful to us, I think, to be more specific.
You're not going to get that. We're not going to mandate what this looks like and what this project
I'm not
is.
asking you to mandate, I'm just asking you to give us some more
Don't
clear
mandate. Tell us
guidance.
this is something you will like.
So in the typical process, and it's not terribly.
Don't
Excuse
ask
us.
us, not them. Yeah.
You never spoke to us about it.
You said you talked to the
Hold on, let me-
neighborhood?
We
did
We're
have
right
community
across the
meetings.
street.
Let me
You never came
hang on.
by.
I knocked at your door and you didn't come out, okay? I knocked at
That
her
does
door.
not
Excuse-
mean
look.
that you talked to me.
Okay.
Enough.
Let's
Enough
not-
of that.
let's not do that.
Look this way.
Yeah.
So in other large project situations, especially the ones where mayor and council has the jurisdiction to approve it, they will insert in the process a work session where a more informal look at the plans, more of the discussion you're talking about. What are you really looking to do? Remember, tonight is a public hearing and findings on a plan you've submitted. Okay, so technically, we're not going to redesign things tonight. We're not going to tell you specifically how to change it. We're telling you what we see in the plan that's been submitted and what we don't want to see move forward, right? We could, and I need to turn to staff for this a little bit, set a date for a work session where more of this could be discussed in those terms, where it's not reviewing a plan and approving it, but it's offering more pointed suggestions about how to solve the problem, and to invite those from the public to give that same input and try to figure out a way to meld all that together and create a more specific direction for you. Technically, we can't do that. We can't sit here and say, here's the rule book, follow these 3 rules, except in process. So I'm sensing the best way out of this and the best way forward might be to do something like a work session to get those ideas on the table. Now let me look at staff and see if I've completely overstepped the. And you can say so if I did.
We have not done one of those since I've been at the city at the planning commission level.
Yeah.
I am not aware of anything that precludes it necessarily.
And I don't know that it's a planning commission level issue, right? We're a judicial body, right?
Staff.
Right.
But, so it's a
I
different.
guess my question was to everybody, but it was also to Chris. I mean, we're happy to work with staff.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that us working with staff, I mean, they become the voice, in a sense, for you guys. You know, they're a conduit, and the feedback we take from them.
Here's what to figure out. We have to find a way to incorporate all of the input you got tonight in a way that's productive, not just critique on the plan you did, but turn it into something you can use to move forward.
That's correct.
Or not. And I'm struggling right now to figure out what that vehicle is, because we don't get this very often, if at all. I mean, it usually happens at a different level and a different time in the process.
No, that'll be great, actually. That'll be good, sure.
Okay.
I have seen projects, not necessarily in the city, but ones we've done professionally, where the owner and the architect host an actual community charrette. Not just give me your complaints, but an actual community charrette with, you know, visioning and trace paper and fat markers and sketches to work through things. And any of us who want to show up, any of the community, you know, but that has to be something that's initiated and run by you. It's not something that, we can't be the therapist to run that session.
With this being an active application, I would actually discourage the planning commission from attending and
Well,
participating in a charrade.
Right, that's perfectly
Okay.
fair, but there are I think there are a couple people here in the room who'd be willing to participate.
May I ask a question? Just if you have, no is an okay answer, if you need to wrap this up.
No, we're done with public. We're trying to sort out how we can get you involved again. So that's
I'm
what.
just gonna ask if what we said made sense to them, like, cause just. So
Okay, let's wrap up this portion and we'll get back to all that.
We could bring it back to the next meeting, which is the first meeting in January, for further discussion as an agenda item, with the understanding, I think, of the applicant, that meeting discussion will be more of a work session type of discussion, right? We'll advertise it similar to a normal meeting and send our notifications out. But you don't have to make any decisions at that night's meeting, right? You can, again, defer to, let's say, the January 18th meeting, which will be the second meeting of the month. Based, again, further off that discussion and the further work the commission and the applicant may want to do it. It's called a work session, right, on the 4th.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Are you talking about on the 4th of January?
Yes.
So you would already know, that's really not deferring the public hearing, that's, I would almost suggest if that's the plan, and that's not impossible, that's legally permissible, at least in my view, perhaps deferring the public hearing element to a time after that, let's say.
I would say the 18th, the January 18th.
Either the 18th of the.
Or February 1st.
Perhaps the first week in February. And then in the meantime, say, well, let's do a work session in the middle of this time, in the beginning of January, as you're suggesting. That then, you've postponed the public hearing, you've gone essentially 60 days for that, and then you are building in a work session in the middle. The difficulty is that you are in a quasi-judicial position as commissioners, and that becomes the difficulty to engage back and forth. Certainly attend, but that's the problem you have. I mean, one way to do it is to say, withdraw and start again because it takes you out of that quasi-judicial role. That's the problem. However, that work session could be some update, some discussion of what's happening. Perhaps there is additional, if there's public comment and engagement between staff and the developer, that's certainly permitted. You can certainly offer perhaps some reaction, some level of guidance, because it is as part of a public meeting. It's not like you're acting not as a board or not as a commission, but it's a much more limited circumstance given the way we'd be operating that. But if you want to take that approach, I would say postpone this public hearing until February and then allow at least a more informal proceeding in January to accomplish that.
And outside of our own scheduled meetings, there could and should be meetings that the applicant facilitates with any stakeholders who are interested in commenting, and assuming staff would be there as well to help facilitate and organize. Is that right?
Yeah, that's not going to involve any concern with your role in terms of the quasi-judicial role or.
I promise I'll stay home.
Any concern like that.
All right. Go ahead.
My question is, then what we should do is vote on the recommendation, reject the recommendation, and start all over. That makes the most sense. Instead of tying yourself into knots over whether it's allowable or permissible, we just reject it as out of hand and let the applicant go back to staff and work with the stakeholders, and then come back to us at some appropriate date. I'm asking for legal advice.
Right. That's certainly an option for the commission. In the past, your actions have generally, at least in the years I've been around, has allowed a deferral of the postponing the time, and that could end up being an outcome. You always certainly have that ability to say, look, this the denial would have to lay out the reasoning for it, and we'd have to make sure to walk through that as opposed to
Okay, that-
reasons to defer.
Okay.
Yeah,
But,
and I would
um,
be opposed,
okay.
just FYI.
Okay.
Understood.
Then deferrals.
Okay.
We
And
will
I'll
definitely
ask-
be working with the applicant based off tonight's discussion in advance of any future, again, meetings or work sessions with the planning
Okay,
commission.
step me through again, though. I want to make sure we get this correct.
Right.
Procedurally, we need to defer or what is the term you want to use? Do we need to
Vote to
defer?
defer?
We need to,
You're actually deferring and postponing the public hearing date to a specific future date, which could
Okay.
be, it could be January, and if there's an expectation that perhaps there would, and that I would be looking at, I mean, Christmas is in the meantime, so how much realistically, how much information is going to be put forward, how much change is going to happen, and how many
We'll
opportunities are you
decide
gonna
on just-
have for public involvement between now?
okay, but
So maybe
dates-
February would be.
Dates
the
aside,
time.
just for the moment, the first step is to defer or
Yeah.
postpone the public hearing.
Hmm?
And then direct staff to work with the applicant
Hmm?
to address these issues tonight. And what I'm also thinking is that we can direct staff to facilitate or help, applicant to develop a public meeting process for getting this input, somehow captured in a way that's meaningful. Does that make sense? With staff's
Good
guidance,
faith
is
input.
that?
Good faith input.
Yeah. So I think that looks like two conditions on it too, right? Or
Mhm.
something like that?
Yeah, and it also, again, it does need to be a specific date. That's the other requirement, because that hooks into the public hearing requirement.
Specific date for the postponed
Mhm.
public hearing, okay.
That it's not, for some point in the future, it has to have a
Yeah,
specific date.
good point. All right, so applicant's team, let me put this question to you. Just look at a kind of big picture, look at your calendar. If we defer tonight, and part of the steps involved is working with staff to address our issues tonight, and develop a dialogue with the community in a public meeting format where you get input, you get these ideas resolved or get these ideas on the table and captured in a way, good faith is reasonably incorporated into the final resolution. What does that look like on the calendar to you?
Well, it's hard for me to say. I mean, staff is probably easier. Getting the public meeting, it's harder to know. I mean, it's certainly not a postponement to January.
So we can defer to February 1st, February 15th.
Mid-February.
The
I
council
think-
meeting, so the next one's, first one in February is when?
The first?
First and then 14th.
And the
15th,
14th?
yeah.
15th, I'm sorry.
If we said the first and we are not gonna make it, can we defer that again?
Yep.
Okay, then let's say the first.
Okay. All right, help me with this. So we're gonna do a motion to postpone the public hearing until February 1st, correct, Rick? Okay, with two conditions. One is that applicant to work with staff to resolve comments on the record from us tonight. And, condition 2, to conduct a public forum to address issues brought up by the community and incorporate into the plan. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, can we add conditions to a deferral, though?
That's a-
Because it's just a continuance of the
Just on the
meeting.
record.
It's
Just on
not
the
a
record. Okay.
Yeah.
That
close
makes
the
sense.
record or.
It's an open
part
record,
of-
Rich.
I think it's part of the record, though,
Yeah.
as the
Part of the
discussion
record
tonight.
of what you're looking for during
By the
the
first.
delay
Okay.
that you have built in.
That makes it so much easier. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being an attorney. All right, so that's on the table then. Any questions, any issues?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair. That's not a promotion. I'll make a motion to defer this application until February 1st.
Second.
Your motion actually would be to postpone the
The public
public
hearing.
hearing
Thank you.
until February 1st, 2023.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that?
So I'll make a motion to defer the public hearing. Postpone the public hearing, sorry, on, that you want me to give you the number? SP 9149-2021 concept plan until February 1st, next
Second.
year.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Frank, we good? It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, you've got your marching orders. Good luck.
Thank you.
That's it.
They're still meeting.
What?
They're
All
still
right,
meeting.
That takes us, folks in the crowd, if you would, we still have a couple items on our agenda,
Sure.
so if you could move your conversations outside, I appreciate it. We have next from the commission, Sharon. I know, that's what.
Nothing for me.
All right. Phil, anything tonight?
No.
Anything tonight?
All set.
Lloyd?
Happy holidays to everybody and a happy new year.
All right, great. Good point. All right, from staff, Greg.
Yeah, I can give an update. John's probably going to bring this up as well, but we had our kickoff meeting today on the Zoneco, with Zoneco, who's our consultant for the comprehensive review of the city's zoning ordinance. Again, it's about an 18-month process we're expecting. A lot of public engagement, lots of bi-weekly meetings with our consultant to kind of dig into this. It's going to be a lot, it's a heavy lift, but we're really excited to start this process. And again, today was the kickoff meeting, so yeah, we're excited.
This has a 18-month, 24-month, what's it look like?
18 months is what we're expecting to take.
Great.
Yeah.
18 months for first comment, or?
Hopefully adoption.
Oh, adoption, okay, great. So we'll have a draft in 12 months and 6 months? And
I don't have dates yet on when we'll get drafts out. Again, we do want to make sure we're having a very robust engagement strategy with the community, as well as the commission and the council and the other committees. But yeah, 18 months is what we're aiming for to get it adopted.
it's really exciting. I was at the last ULI in Dallas. I was bragging about you guys. So it's a great project.
Got to live up to it now.
Yeah.
Great project to rebuild it from the ground up is a great way to do it. I love it.
All right.
The only other thing I have is a reminder of upcoming meetings. January 17th is the joint public hearing for the Lake Forest Mall sketch plan and rezoning application. January 23rd and February 27th is joint work sessions on the housing element of the master plan. And then February 6th, and I have not pulled you this for you on this yet, excuse me, is potentially the sketch plan for the Nike site.
Oh, really?
In the joint public hearing for that, yes.
And you say that every couple of years, and I never
What was the
never
first
get to
date
see
in
it.
February you had?
February 6th.
Before
I will
that.
send an email out
Before that,
on that,
something
yeah,
else.
as we get closer.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
do
I can
we
send
or do
reminders.
we not have a December 21st meeting? I have it on my calendar, but that could be.
There's no December
This is it.
21st.
Okay.
No.
Right, this is it?
This is it.
This
Yep,
is
this is
it.
your last meeting of the year.
When you set up an automatic meeting for every 2 weeks, it puts meetings at inopportune.
Then our next meeting of the Planning Commission is January 4th of 2023.
23, wow. We've wrapped up the year. Thanks,
That's all I
Greg.
got.
What's the over/under on us being in the new council chambers for that?
I do not have a date for that. I asked the
Under
same
is more
question.
like it.
Totally under.
But that's all I have today. Thank
Yeah,
you.
don't be looking at me on that prediction either.
I'm gonna give you a screwdriver and a hammer and send you over there for me.
All right.
So Greg already stole all my items.
Oh,
But I did want to especially thank Commissioner Wessel for attending the kickoff today, and he's committed to attending meetings throughout the zoning rewrite process. So we're excited about
Thanks,
that.
Phil.
We're excited about his participation. And yes, the Lake Forest joint public hearing for January 17th is not tentative anymore, and it's been advertised and the signs are up, and so it's going to happen. So we're excited about that as well.
You're sensing that'll be the plan. That plan will look largely like what was presented at their open meeting, their neighborhood meeting
Well,
a few weeks ago?
the sketch plan is actually a lot less than what was presented.
Oh, good point, okay.
Yeah, so the sketch plan is a, true sketch plan, so
Okay,
it'll
gotcha,
be.
yeah.
But we're excited about it moving through the process.
Great.
Yeah.
It is exciting. All right, anything else
Frank.
from anybody?
Well, I would
Frank.
just point out that I've been engaged, I think partly because I'm a little crazy, in LLM conflict resolution program, which is an online program, and it kind of seems especially relevant tonight. So, and if I can be of assistance as we try to engage the community and actually produce, from what was said, produce something that that the developer can work with, which may end up being a big challenge.
There you go, Greg. Just lock the door and throw Frank in there.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that.
I'll give you a roll of trace and a marker.
Yeah, of course, settled on that. Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think with a bit more, a little more effort, it's going to get there. Great, thank you.
you.
All right, anything else? Well, if not, all the happy holidays, however they fall for you, and see you in 2023, and we're adjourned.